Chapter 35:21. Fellow Taoists, let me introduce you. This is the Thunder Epic's Purple Thunder Holy Venerate. Luoho stepped forward and introduced himself to everyone. And these three are Great Righteousness Holy Senior, Ling Yun Immortal Fairy, and Heavy Water Supreme. The three of them were about to greet him, but they saw that Purple Thunder Holy Senior had no intention of greeting them at all. Hence, they simply stood still. The situation was a little deadlocked. This Purple Thunder Saint Venerate clearly did not care about these three people at all. With his profound cultivation, he could tell with a glance that these three people were only at the 5th realm. Although Yi Shiwen's cultivation was comparable to the 6th realm, he was actually only in the 5th realm. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to tell that he actually had the combat power of the 6th realm. Both Heavy Water Supreme and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy were a little unhappy. Although they knew that Purple Thunder Holy Senior was quite extraordinary and was a level higher than everyone else, they didn't think that the gap was so big that an emperor actually dared to disrespect them like this. It had always been them who treated others so arrogantly. Since when could others treat them so casually? Only Yi Shiwen remained calm and collected. It wasn't that he was indifferent to Purple Thunder Saint Senior's rudeness. Rather, he would always respect others tenfold if others didn't respect him. If others didn't comply, then he wouldn't give them any face. It was just that he knew that this was a trap set by Luoho. Compared to this, everything else was nothing. Purple Thunder Holy Senior's rudeness didn't affect the overall situation at all. Luoho seemed to have noticed the awkward atmosphere between them, but he didn't seem to see it. He just rolled his eyes as if he didn't see it at all and said, "Since everyone is here, I'll make it short. This time, we're going to destroy an era. I hope that everyone can lend me a hand and hold back the counterattack of this era's heavenly law. In return, I will also thank you after it's done. Thank you very much. It's all right. You're too polite. It's only natural to take someone's money to eliminate a disaster." Yi Shiwen stepped forward and took the lead to break the awkward situation. He wanted to see what Luoho was up to. "All right, then I won't say anything more. I'll have to rely on everyone to take action next," Luoho said with a faint smile. "Taoist Rahu, please forgive me for speaking out of turn. Given how Taoist Purple Thunder Holy Venerate is acting, can we still work together?" Heavy Water Supremacy stepped forward and said. Immortal Fairy Ling Yun, who was beside him, also had a look of agreement. Clearly, Holy Venerate Purple Thunder's arrogance had completely angered these two equally arrogant Heavenly Venerates. "Cooperate? I don't think it's necessary. I alone am enough. What's the use of adding the three of you?" Purple Thunder Saint Venerable finally opened his mouth. His voice was deep and pleasant to listen to. However, in the ears of the two of them, it sounded like a clap of thunder, a kind of humiliation. The faces of the two of them immediately sank. The Purple Thunder Saint Venerate was clearly implying that the two of them were a burden. How could the two of them, who had always been proud, not be angry? This is too much. Heavy Water Supremacy roared angrily. The boundless water attributed nomological laws on his body. He finally started to fluctuate, turning into a raging wave that flooded towards Purple Thunder Saint Venerate. At the same time, thunder surged from Purple Thunder Saint Venerate's body and spread out. The battle between the two Heavenly Venerates was on the verge of breaking out. Although Heavy Water Supremacy's cultivation wasn't as good as Purple Thunder Saint Venerate's, he wasn't an easy opponent either. With a move, the earth-shattering Heavy Water crushed the space. This was because Heavy Water was the heaviest water in the world. Every drop was as heavy as Mount Tai. This boundless heavy water felt like an entire world was crushing down. This was the nomological law that Heavy Water Supremacy cultivated. He had only chosen to cultivate a branch of the water-attributed nomological laws, yet he had cultivated this attribute to an unimaginable level. After entering the Heavenly Venerate realm, any Tao that reached the pinnacle would be extremely terrifying. Purple Thunder Saint Venerate wasn't inferior in any way. In fact, he was even more terrifying. The terrifying purple thunder that surged from his body was the most terrifying type of thunder. A casual strike of it could penetrate a world. However, just as the collision between the two heavenly venerates was about to break out, Luo-ho had suddenly appeared in the middle of the two sides. He spread his hands, and the attacks from both sides were actually absorbed by him. Then, he made a grabbing motion and turned everything into nothingness. In an instant, it was as if the sky had cleared up and the tense atmosphere from before had vanished in a thin air with this grab. Be it heavy water or purple thunder, they had all disappeared without a trace. Everyone present looked at Luo-ho in shock. Although they knew that Luo-ho was very powerful and could be considered unfathomable, they had never thought that he would be this powerful. He had just casually annihilated the attacks of both sides without a trace of smoke or fire. As powerhouses of the same level, they knew very well what this meant. This meant that Luo-ho's strength was far above theirs. It was extremely terrifying. The expressions of the two suddenly became silent. Only Yishuin had roughly guessed that Luo-ho had the strength of the seventh realm. It was normal for him to have such a performance. However, he was still extremely vigilant. Although he had long been prepared, Luo-ho's strength was an indisputable fact. It would have been fine if he was a friend and not an enemy. However, he knew from the beginning that Luo-ho was plotting against them. How could he not be vigilant? Fellow Taoists, aren't you a little too excited? Luo-ho said with a slight smile. Next, the destruction of an era is about to begin. I also need your help. If you guys are like this, I won't be at ease. Can everyone give me some face? Luo-ho had a smile on his face, but everyone could see a faint murderous intent on his smiling face. Obviously, if they blocked his path and hindered his business, he would probably turn hostile on the spot. Everyone had already experienced his strength. Naturally, they would not continue to be presumptuous and nodded one after another. Everyone, please come with me. After Luo-ho finished speaking, he took the lead. His figure turned into a ball of light and flew straight into the chaos. The rest of them didn't say anything and just followed him. In particular, Purple Thunder Holy Sage took the lead and directly chased after Luo-ho. The others also followed closely behind. Chapter 35:22. Everyone was a celestial master, so their speed was naturally very fast. In just an instant, they had already flown out of the Seven Absolute City. Although the few heavenly venerates had just experienced a conflict, they were still very excited. After all, destroying an era wasn't something that even heavenly venerates had the opportunity to attempt. It could even be said that no one in an era could do it even once. Even if they were facing an era's heavenly way that was about to be destroyed, it was still an unimaginable experience. Only Yishuin was calm because he had experienced it once. Many things were no longer secrets, but he understood the horror of an era's heavenly way even more. Last time, when the seventh gold era's heavenly way was sealed by the heaven sealing talisman, it still posed a huge threat to him. Under normal circumstances, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. If he wanted to capture the seventh gold era, he would have to pay the price of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The entire eastern region would have to suffer great losses, and they might not be able to capture the seventh gold era that was not in a complete state. It was not without reason that those epics could survive one epic after another under the circumstances of the Great Apocalypse. Although Luo-ho said that it was an era's heavenly way that was about to fall, Yishuin still did not dare to underestimate it. Although there seemed to be a lot of benefits in this matter, he had to fight for it with his life. Moreover, he did not believe Luo-ho at all. He always felt that there was some conspiracy behind it. Yishuin hung at the back of the team, and he seemed to be the slowest. This was because Yishuin seemed like a physique cultivator at the beginning, so his performance now was similar to that of a physique cultivator. While he was flying, he seemed to be running. One leap was thousands of miles. It was very noisy, but the efficiency was not low. Although he had been hanging at the back of the team, he was actually not slow, and he would not fall behind. Soon, Yishuin discovered that something was wrong because he was already at the back. However, in reality, there was a demon lord following behind him. Although it was only within the range of his spiritual awareness, it was faintly discernible. However, Yishuan was already vigilant, so he was still caught. Originally, Luo Ho was the demon venerate of the demonic epic. It was normal for him to find another demon venerate to help him. However, he did not say anything about it. In reality, there was a demon venerate watching from afar. This made it even more obvious that there was something going on. It was only because he was in the primal chaos. Even with his cultivation base, he was unable to expand his divine sense like usual. Otherwise, he would be able to tell what Luo Ho was up to with a single glance. However, he still didn't show anything. Body cultivators weren't good at this in the first place. Not being able to discover something was what they were best at. As he flew, he quickly refined the E-Wood Azure Dragon in his body. His skills were also growing bit by bit. Everyone continued flying, entering the depths of the universe. Without Luo Ho's guidance, they would not have been able to reach this place. Exploring in the primal chaos was simply too painful, as they did not even have the slightest sense of direction. After flying for another month, the Empyreans' speed still felt endless. They were about to pass through all known regions of the primal chaos. During this month, Yishuan finally completely digested the E-Wood Azure Dragon. The last bit of Wood Chi also completely integrated into his body. His cultivation base also unknowingly broke through to the peak of the fifth realm. Although all these changes were sudden, no one was alarmed. Yishuan used the supreme ancestral symbol to suppress all the changes. Without anyone knowing, he completed the transformation. After finally breaking through to the peak of the fifth realm, Yishuan felt that his combat power was enough to sweep away the sixth realm. If he had fought with Purple Thunder's Saint Venerate before, it would have ended in a draw. After all, he had just broken through to the fifth realm, while Purple Thunder's Saint Venerate was already at the sixth realm, or even close to the peak. It was already a miracle that he could draw with him. However, it was different now. He was confident that he could sweep away the sixth realm and defeat Purple Thunder Saint. However, he chose to hide it. That was because the person he saw as the greatest threat was none other than Demon Venerate Luo Ho. When facing a terrifying existence above the seventh realm, no matter how careful he was, he could not be too careful. He was not afraid of taking risks, but he did not want to act recklessly. As they went deeper, everyone finally felt a kind of heavenly pressure. It was faintly discernible and very weak. However, it was different from ordinary heavenly laws. This kind of heavenly law gave people a feeling of desolation, as if it would be destroyed in the next second. Yishuan had never felt this kind of feeling before. The heavenly law that he had truly felt before was the martial arts epic. It was extremely powerful, like the blazing sun in the sky, full of vitality and prosperity. Although the seventh gold epic was not as powerful as the martial arts epic, it did not show any signs of imminent destruction. At most, it was the glory of the setting sun. However, this heavenly law gave him the feeling that the sun had completely set. Only a little afterglow was left on the other side of the mountain. When the seventh gold epic was destroyed, it was like the collapse of the blazing sun. It was grand and violent, and the heavens fell and the earth cracked. From being full of vitality to complete destruction, it only took a short period of time. However, it was not as desolated as this epic's heavenly law. It was as if it was going to fall into eternal darkness with no way out. This was the final destination of the true epic. The situation of the seventh gold epic being destroyed and sacrificed to the martial arts epic was just a special situation. The final destination of a true epic should be as strong as the martial epic. After experiencing the great shattering, it would become like the seventh metal epic, lingering on for a long time. Then, after countless years, it would become completely silent. This epic's heavenly law had truly gone through the entire process. That kind of desolation made people feel a chill in their hearts. It was not the kind of deathly stillness. Compared to the deathly stillness of the heavenly law epic, the deathly stillness brought by death was nothing. It could not be mentioned in the same breath. After seeing this scene, Yi Shiwen understood why so many ancient epics would think of ways to attack the martial arts epic, to plunder resources and the heavenly law. It was all to prolong their lifespans. Epics that did not receive any replenishment would end up like this sooner or later. They would fall into eternal silence in the primal chaos, disintegrating inch by inch. The deathly stillness made nothing exist. It was not just living things. Mountains, rivers, heaven, and earth did not exist. Even time, space, and laws did not exist. They had all shattered in the long passage of time. Yi Shiwen saw this scene, and he felt that his understanding of death was gradually improving. He had seen the death of many living beings. In fact, he had even intruded into the Netherworld Kingdom in the past and killed the Netherworld Emperor. He had plundered a large number of ancient books and understanding of death. Therefore, he had a very profound understanding of death. He had even seen a true world die. A world was collapsing. Mountains, rivers, heaven, earth, and all living things crumbled. However, this was child's play compared to the death of an epic. This was a true death ceremony. If a sovereign emperor that only cultivated the death Tao could cultivate and comprehend in such an environment, he could successfully break through to the heavenly venerate realm in less than 100,000 years. This was the death of an epic. Even death contained the mysteries of the chaotic universe. The way of the heavenly law would only bloom at such a time. He operated the mysterious space and frantically copied everything he saw. He did not copy the scene in front of him, but the death of an epic. This kind of method was crazy. The Great Era's death contained the greatest mysteries within, and it was the time when the death flower bloomed the most. It was already not bad for people to comprehend it at this time, but to actually want to replicate the Great Era's death, it was simply a fantasy. It was simply impossible. Yi Shiwen's replication process only lasted for 5 minutes before it stopped. This was because the mysterious space had stopped analyzing and replicating the dragon vein. His Black King-level dragon vein had been completely consumed. A king-level dragon vein was something that many heavenly venerates wouldn't be able to use up in their lifetime. However, Yi Shiwen had only copied the death of an epic's heavenly law for 5 minutes, and it had been completely consumed. One could imagine how difficult this process was. However, there were naturally many benefits. The first was naturally his comprehension of the Death Tao. He had leaped into the ranks of the top 10 martial arts. It could be said that he could casually cut out a very powerful Death Heavenly Venerate clone, just like how he cut out his sword Tao Heavenly Venerate clone. This kind of clone was different from an incarnation. It could grow and comprehend on its own. If the situation allowed, it could even cultivate to the level of a peak Heavenly Venerate. It was very impressive. Of course, in order to create such an avatar, one would need to consume extremely precious heavenly materials and earthly treasures. This was because an Empyrean's physical body and primordial spirit had to be heavenly treasures. Ordinary items would not be able to withstand an Empyrean's primordial spirit and physical body. In short, his understanding of the Death Tao had reached a shocking level. Moreover, the 5 minutes of the epic's heavenly law's death had been copied. He could repeatedly watch and repeatedly comprehend it. This could continue to improve his understanding of the Death Tao. Moreover, he also remembered that his family in the myriad heavens and realms, his chess piece Yi Qianqian, also cultivated the path of death. This was very important to her, and it was even enough for her to cultivate to the heavenly venerate realm. Although Hua Menghan practiced the great way of the Phoenix clan, the nirvana great technique of the Phoenix clan also included the great way of death. In fact, the great way of nirvana contained the great way of death. If he could see the death of an epic's heavenly law, his cultivation would improve by leaps and bounds. Therefore, although he had consumed a king-level dragon vein for 5 minutes, he didn't regret it at all. Chapter 35-23. The Great Era Heavenly Tao was an incomparably huge event. From birth to death, it was like this. It was an extraordinary feast. When a great era was just born, what bloomed was the flower of life. It contained endless vitality, establishing the foundation for the endless prosperity of the world in the future. When the era was ending, the flower of death bloomed. The poignant beauty of death was vividly reflected here. A heavenly way was born from chaos and finally perished in chaos. From birth to death, from nothingness to birth, and then back to nothingness. What a wonderful process it was. Yishuin only felt that he was immersed in it. Although offering sacrifices to the era of the heavenly way could obtain a lot of benefits, the benefits would be even more if he slowly comprehended it. However, the problem was that he did not have the time to slowly comprehend it. Moreover, the person who was offering sacrifices to the era of the heavenly way was not him, but Demon Venerable Luo Ho. At this time, Luo Ho said, "Dear friends, this time I want to offer sacrifices to the era of the heavenly way. This is a heavenly way that is about to perish. With the strength of everyone, including me, we can complete the offering of the heavenly way. As long as this era of the heavenly way is offered to our devil era, then the devil era will also descend a lot of benefits. Everyone will inevitably obtain huge benefits." Heavy Water Supreme and the others also showed a somewhat happy expression. Although they had never offered sacrifices to the era of the heavenly way, it did not prevent them from knowing this. The heavenly way was fair, and every heavenly way was like this. Since they had offered sacrifices, then they would receive rewards. This would not change because the heavenly way itself did not have subjective will. It was the concentrated embodiment of the will of all living beings in the world. It was the most fair and would not treat them differently just because they were from another era. This was also the fundamental reason why they came to help. Although a king-level dragon vein was precious, it was not necessarily enough to tempt them to take the risk. Even an upcoming era of the heavenly way was much more terrifying than an ordinary heavenly venerable. The benefits of offering sacrifices to the era of the heavenly way were great, but there were also many potential dangers. These two complemented each other. All right, let's cut the crap. Let's get started quickly. Purple Thunder Saint Venerate said, when faced with such great benefits, even someone as proud as him could no longer maintain a straight face. This time, Supreme Heavy Water and Immortal Fairy Ling Yun didn't say anything. They just stared coldly at Purple Thunder Saint Venerable. In the end, they didn't continue to escalate into a conflict because there was no need. Their cooperation would be limited to this time. Once the sacrificial ceremony was completed, they would most likely not work together anymore. If they went back to digest what they had gained this time, they might not even see each other for an entire era. All right, I'll cut to the chase. In order to prevent this era's heavenly law from retaliating, I'll be setting up a 4 Supremes Demon Sealing Formation. It will require 4 heavenly venerates to take action at the same time to seal off any retaliation from this era's heavenly law. I'll be responsible for offering this era's heavenly law to the Demon Dao era's heavens. Does anyone have any questions about my arrangements? Demon Venerate Luoho asked as he looked at everyone. No problem, but the process of sealing it will consume a lot of energy. You should be responsible for compensating me, right? Immortal Fairy Ling Yun's eyes were like water as she glanced at Demon Venerable Luo Ho and said, "Of course, when this matter is over, I'll naturally compensate everyone." Demon Venerable Luo Ho said, "In that case, what other objections can we have? Let's get started." Supreme Heavy Water said. Yishuin didn't speak from the beginning to the end. What he was thinking was that Demon Venerable Luo Ho was definitely plotting something. However, what exactly was his plot? If he couldn't figure this out, it was inevitable that he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fellow Taoist, great righteous, heavenly venerable, do you have any questions? Demon Venerable Luo Ho looked at Yishuin and asked, "I don't have any questions." Yishuin nodded and said, "All right, then I'll pass the formation diagram to you. You can combine your own parts to set up this 4 Supremes Demon Sealing Formation." Demon Venerable Luo Ho said. He waved his hand, and 4 demonic lights flew out and entered everyone's body. Everyone immediately felt that there was a lot of knowledge about formations in their minds. It was none other than this Four Supremes demon sealing formation. Yishuin carefully looked at this Jin method. This Jin method was indeed a top-notch Jin method. It contained unimaginable knowledge about Jin method. Yishuin's research on Jin method was not weak, but it was obvious that there was a big gap between him and the people who could break through these four devil seal arrays. However, he wasn't discouraged because there were specializations in every field. The powerhouses who were able to reach the peak of the extreme Tao all had their own strengths. Yishuin didn't dare to say that he could be the best in every field. After all, that was simply unrealistic. Even if he had the mysterious space, it was no exception, which Heavenly Venerable didn't have their own fortuitous encounters. Every one of them was a genius. It wasn't easy to surpass any one of them, let alone surpassing all of them in every field. Yishuin felt that his understanding of the Jin method would improve by leaps and bounds if he could comprehend these four demon seal formations. However, after looking at it completely, he found that it was only a part of the Four Supremes demon sealing formation. This formation was a sealing formation with four heavenly venerables as the four corners of the world. It was indeed extremely powerful, and there was even room for improvement. Basically, it could be said that the stronger the heavenly venerables in the four corners were, the stronger the formation that could be arranged in the end. The formidability of this formation could be seen from the fact that Demon Venerable Luo Ho dared to use it to seal an era's heavenly way. Even if it was an era's heavenly way that was about to die out, it was still very powerful. Yishuin had only obtained a corner of the formation. Although it was enough to form a sealing formation, there was obviously a big gap between it and the complete version of the Four Supremes demon sealing formation. However, it was impossible for Demon Venerable Luo Ho to impart the complete version of the formation to them. For a war of this level, it would be a supreme treasure in any era. This was very normal. The comprehension ability of heavenly venerables was naturally extraordinary. Soon, everyone had more or less comprehended it. Although they didn't dare to say that they had reached the acme of perfection, they still had the ability to arrange a basic formation. It did not take long for the four of them to fly around the era's heavenly law. Even though this era was already in its final stages of extinction, it was still very big, spanning hundreds of billions of kilometers. They had to fly for quite some time before they reached the four corners of the era's heavenly law. There, they began setting up. Yishuin arrived at the southeast corner and stood still. He pinched a seal, and a large matrix suddenly appeared under his feet. With his body as the center, it continuously spread out. Countless golden lines fluttered in the sky, and soon connected with Purple Thunder Holy Senior and Immortal Fairy Ling Yun's matrix lines, which were also spreading over. Soon, the four of them formed a large formation. At the moment when this large formation was formed, Yishuin felt a strong rejection of this era's heavenly way. When he first entered this era's heavenly way, he only felt a little bit of rejection because this era's heavenly way was unable to reject them. It was like a dying patient, unable to stop the outbreak of the virus in the body, unable to kill the virus with the body's strong immunity like when the body was healthy. However, even a dying patient would sit up in shock, let alone this era's heavenly way. Almost immediately, he felt a huge rejection. It was as if the whole world was against him. Even breathing was a sin, and it was a heinous sin. This was the feeling of heaven and earth judging him, narrating his sins, forcing him to obediently bow his head and admit his sins. He hadn't encountered this kind of situation when he destroyed the Gung Jin era. That was because the heaven-sealing talisman had sealed the Gung Jin era's heavenly Tao when he destroyed the Gung Jin era, reducing his discomfort and rejection to a minimum. This was enough to show how powerful the fortune creation heaven monarch was. He was able to refine such a magical talisman like the heaven-sealing talisman, which could even seal the era's heavenly way. At that time, Yishuin didn't think much of it, and only thought that sealing the heavenly way was very simple. Now that he thought about it, it was simply an incredible miracle. Compared to the means of the fortune creation heaven monarch, The 4 demon sealing talismans prepared by demon venerable Rahu were also very powerful, but in fact, they were much simpler. They were not on the same level at all. The heaven sealing talisman was specialized in sealing the heavenly way, and the 4 demon sealing talismans were just a cameo. They cannot be compared at all. This feeling of rejection was getting stronger and stronger, and even space was distorting. The heavenly way that was about to be destroyed obviously couldn't stand being sacrificed to another era's heavenly way, and was resisting and struggling. Reality was rejecting, and then it began to distort space and time. Yi Shiwen saw the space shattering into pieces around his body. He even saw the river of time strangely materialize and then roll back. Time was flowing back. Yes. Yi Shiwen took a breath of cold air. Although he was cultivating the law of time, it was the first time that he saw time flowing back. He could also cause time to flow back, but in fact, it was only by relying on his powerful magic power to forcibly modify a certain part of the outcome. The time flowing back in front of him was the entire timeline flowing back, and the timeline of this era was flowing back. Yi Shiwen immediately understood that this was the heavenly way era trying to find out his past. If his past was destroyed, there would naturally be no present. Unfortunately, this method was useful for ordinary people, but it was useless against a heavenly master. Chapter 35:24. No one was born invincible, so there must be a past and a future. There would always be the most vulnerable time, which was when he was born. It could even be traced back to the time when his parents were born, or even the time when his ancestors were born. Once one of the lines was broken, then the person behind would naturally cease to exist. This was a matter of course. This was the biggest weakness. Of course, it was unlikely for ordinary people to have the ability to reverse time. Even if Yi Shiwen was strong enough to cultivate the time law, it was impossible to reverse time and kill a celestial master. He had this ability against ordinary gods and emperors, but it was not necessary because ordinary gods and emperors could be killed by him easily. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Therefore, this ability, which seemed to be very powerful, was actually very weak. However, the Heaven Way had such an ability. The Heaven Way was the sum of everything, and the timeline was naturally one of them. Naturally, it could be easily reversed. However, the strength of the Celestial Master was that he had cut off all the past and future in the long river of time. This fatal weakness no longer existed. In any timeline, at any point of time, as long as he appeared, it was the current him, he was in his strongest state. If he couldn't be defeated and killed in reality, then it was impossible to defeat and kill him in this timeline. Sure enough, the Yi Shiwen who entered the Heaven Way reflected in this timeline was also in his peak state. He was so powerful that there was no flaw. Yi Shiwen pinched the seals, and a powerful light protected him. Neither the time law nor the space law had any effect on him. However, this was just the beginning. Soon, all kinds of natural disasters fell. Thunder retribution, fire, flood. Yi Shiwen knew of all kinds of calamities and tribulations, and all of them had manifested at this time. All of them rushed towards Yi Shiwen. This was the era's Heaven Way protecting itself. It wanted to destroy a scourge like Yi Shiwen. However, how could such an attack do anything to the current Yi Shiwen? The light of the Gung metal ancestral chi flashed around his body, blocking the thunder retribution, fire, flood, and so on. He was invulnerable and untainted by karma. On the other side of the Great Formation, Purple Thunder Saint and the others also used various means. This level of disaster could not do anything to them. But at that moment, Demon Venerate Luoho finally made his move. He created a grand array and began to worship the demonic epic's heavenly Tao. He wanted to devour this epic's heavenly Tao. Everyone could clearly feel the demonic epic's heavenly Tao projecting its will over from the distant primal chaos. The two eras' heaven ways began to fight. He only felt the world change color. Primal chaos seethed. All types of natural laws and divine chains filled the sky, clashing with each other. This was a clash between the heavenly Taos of two great eras. This epic's heavenly Tao was on the verge of extinction. It was far from its peak. Furthermore, the demonic epic had crossed the boundless primal chaos to send down its will. It was impossible for it to send down all its power. The situation was completely different from the last time when Middle Heavenly Master and Yi Shiwen and the others destroyed the Seventh Gold Era. At that time, the Seventh Gold Era's power was sealed by the Heaven Sealing Talisman. When facing the martial epic's heavenly Tao that crossed realms, they could not retaliate at all. It was a one-sided massacre. Although Yi Shiwen and the others were sealing this era's heaven way, it was not like the heaven-sealing heaven talisman that could completely seal it. It was a completely different concept. Just the shockwaves from the clash between the two heavenly Taos stirred up huge waves in the chaos. Ordinary Imperial Lords would probably die if they were swept by them. Yi Shiwen and the others, who were standing at the four corners of the era's way, were under tremendous pressure. In order to break this seal, the era's way's counterattack was overwhelming. All kinds of calamities and tribulations were happening one after another. It circled around Yi Shiwen's body, trying to break through all of his defenses. Yi Shiwen might not care about one or two kinds of calamities, but when these kinds of calamities increased to a certain extent, even Yi Shiwen began to feel somewhat strenuous. These disasters were getting more and more horrifying. This was the last counterattack of an era's heaven way. It would be especially horrifying. If these disasters were placed in an ordinary world, they could even destroy the world. No one could resist the horrifying destructive power. Yi Shiwen looked around. On the other side, Demon Venerable Lu's great formation summoned the Demon Era's Heaven Way's will. The two Heaven Ways collided directly. Demon Venerable Lu, who was directly bearing the brunt of the collision, suffered a lot of aftershocks. Demon light flashed around him. Every time the demon light flickered, the horrifying aftershocks were annihilated. Demon Venerable Lu obviously came prepared. He did not come rashly. Yi Shiwen clearly saw a faintly discernible demon imprint on his body, blocking the aftershocks for him. Although he did not have the tyrannical strength of a Middle Heavenly Master, he was also prepared. Destroying an era's heaven way was not something an ordinary person could do. Ordinary people would not even dare to think about it. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have the time to pay attention to Demon Venerable Luoho's movements very soon. That was because dozens of heavenly venerables had already appeared in front of him. These heavenly venerables were at their strongest. They had jumped out of the river of time. Hiss! Yi Shiwen took a deep breath. These peerless powerhouses were actually one of the many heavenly masters that were born in this era. Not only Yi Shiwen, but the expressions of Purple Thunder, Saint Venerable, Heavy Water Supreme, and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy also changed. If it was just one or two heavenly venerables, they might still be able to deal with them. But when so many heavenly venerables appeared at once, even though they couldn't be like real heavenly venerables who had fleshly bodies, mystic abilities, and Tao artifacts, just the projection of their martial will and the body reconstructed by the heavenly Tao were already far more terrifying than ordinary heavenly venerables. Not to mention that there were so many heavenly masters surrounding them. It was impossible for the few of them to deal with them. Is this the real war of conquest of the era? Yi Shiwen now deeply understood how much advantage he and the others had by using the Heaven Sealing Talisman. Compared to the dozens of heavenly masters that appeared in an instant, the creatures formed by the seventh metal ancestral chi that were forcibly produced in the seventh metal era were nothing. No matter how powerful they were, there was only one. However, there were dozens of them in front of them. What was more terrifying was that these heavenly masters were still appearing continuously. Every time one of them appeared, it would greatly consume the little energy that the heaven way of this era had left. However, at this point, if they did not fight, they would be swallowed by others. What other choice did they have? These dozens of heavenly masters instantly went in 5 directions. In addition to Yi Shiwen, Purple Thunder Saint Venerable, Heavy Water Supreme, and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy, the most important one was Demon Venerable Lu, who was setting up a formation to constantly summon the will of the Devil Way era. He was the key. As long as Demon Venerable Lahu was killed, it would be impossible for the Devil Way era's will to descend. The Heaven Way of an era was limited to the era he was in. Because the Heaven Way itself did not have a will, it could not act on its own. It could only be guided by others. Demon Venerable Lahu, I can't afford to waste your benefits. Facing the dozens of heavenly masters that were rushing towards him aggressively, and there were still heavenly masters that were born in this era continuously appearing behind them, Ling Yun, a mortal fairy, decisively chose to be terrified. Ling Yun, a mortal fairy, decisively chose to back down. How could destroying an epic's heavenly Tao be accomplished in a short period of time? Looking at Demon Venerable Rahu, it did not seem like he had the means to solve this problem in a short period of time. At this time, he would naturally choose to retreat first. Otherwise, he would be beaten to death by these celestial venerates. She had to maintain the array formation while resisting the attacks of these celestial venerates of this era. She had to admit that she did not have the ability to do so. Even if she did, she would have to pay a huge price to obtain it. Furthermore, she did not have such a good relationship with Demon Exalt Lahu. She had only taken a King Grey Dragon vein from him, but she had to pay for it with her life. As for whether Demon Venerable Lahu could succeed in the end, it was none of her business. These people had come together with him because of the benefits. At this time, they would naturally go their separate ways in the face of a disaster. Ling Yun, a mortal fairy, was the first to give up. Soon after, Heavy Water Supreme made the same choice. Demon Venerable Lahu, I will leave first. You never told me that the Heaven Way of an era that is about to be destroyed still has such a powerful counterattack. Right after Heavy Water Supremacy, Purple Thunder Supremacy answered with his actions. He didn't even bother to say anything else. He turned into a bolt of purple lightning and fled. As he fled, the 4 demon ceiling formations completely collapsed. They couldn't withstand the heavenly Tao's counterattack at all. At this time, Yishuan had already fought with the first heavenly master of the Heaven Way of an era. He did not retreat because he still had the supreme ancestral symbol. Even at the most critical moment, he would not have to worry about protecting himself. After all, it was formed from the essence of the Talisman Tao era. Moreover, it was related to the Talisman ancestor. Naturally, it would not be so simple. Moreover, he knew that Demon Venerable Lahu had a conspiracy. Therefore, he wanted to see what kind of conspiracy Demon Venerable Lahu had and come up with a countermeasure. He also thought of a shocking scenario. If there is a conspiracy, it should have been activated by now. Yishuan saw that Demon Venerable Lahu had endured until now. He felt that if he had a backup plan, it should have been activated. Otherwise, the entire situation would collapse. It would not benefit him at all. You want to leave now? Isn't it too late? Chapter 35:25. You want to leave now? Isn't it too late? Demon Sovereign Luo Ho finally made his move when he was faced with the impending disaster. He had a sinister smile on his face. Clearly, he had expected this to happen. He had casually recruited these people. It would be a miracle if they were reliable enough to die for him. However, he hadn't expected them to be so unreliable. In such a short time, they had already given up before the fight had even begun. However, it didn't matter, as he had already foreseen this scene in his plan. In his opinion, these people were merely expendable. What do you mean? Purple Thunder Saint Venerate was about to fly out of the area ruled by the Great Era's heavenly path. Suddenly, Demon Venerate Luoho shouted, "Set up the formation." Then, just as the Purple Thunder Saint Venerate and the others were feeling terrified, a few more figures suddenly appeared around them. There were also 4 people, and they had also set up 4 demon ceiling formations. However, this time, the 4 demon ceiling formations also sealed the Purple Thunder Saint Venerate and the others. What? How dare you? How could Purple Thunder Saint Venerate and the others not understand Demon Venerate Luoho's plan? From the start, Demon Venerate Luoho had never intended to trust them, and they were indeed unreliable. They had taken a king-grade dragon vein from someone else, yet they had to flee at the crucial moment. However, Demon Venerate Luoho seemed to be prepared for this. He had clearly expected this to happen, yet he had still called them over. He was clearly treating them as cannon fodder and sacrifices. He was using their strength to block the backlash of the Great Era's heavenly path. This was his true plan, as well as his entire plan. These people were just fish on the chopping block, yet they didn't even realize it. Demon Venerate Luoho sneered. Everything was under his control, yet these people still wanted to escape. They were doomed from the start. Even if they managed to survive in the end, he couldn't let these people go. If they offended a heavenly venerate, then they had to be killed. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even the great demon era wouldn't be willing to be targeted by several heavenly venerates at the same time. At the crucial moment, they would launch a sneak attack. They would either let them go or kill them. This was what Demon Sovereign Rahu had planned from the very beginning. However, he couldn't care too much at the moment. He still needed to maintain the demonic era's descending channel. He had to consume countless resources at every moment, but it was worth it, not to mention the benefits of descending directly on him. Even if the demonic era devoured the remnant era and became stronger, he would gain a lot of benefits. Therefore, he absolutely would not allow anyone to cause trouble. At that moment, 4 more demon sovereigns had joined the fray. The 4 demon sealing formations that they had set up were clearly much stronger. It was not that they were stronger, but rather the formations that they had obtained were clearly more complete. Demon Lord Rahu had even held back when it came to the formation. Yishuan finally understood all the conspiracies of Demon Venerable Luo Ho at this time. It turned out that only half of what he had said before was true. Demon Venerable Luo Ho had obviously seen through their unreliability long ago. So, he didn't have any hope in them. He just treated them as cannon fodder. It was used to delay time for him and resist the counterattack of this era's heavenly law. Therefore, Yishuan clearly felt the magic of the heaven-sealing talisman. It was unknown how many mountains of corpses and seas of blood the middle heavenly master and the others would have needed to succeed if the heaven-sealing talisman didn't exist. After all, the 7th Gold era's heavenly law was many times more powerful than the heavenly law of this era that was about to fall. The dragon vein was just a bait to lure them. Even the bait was poisonous, and the demon sovereign wasn't willing to leave it for them. Luoho's plan was really one after another. If Yishuan hadn't discovered the problem with the king-level dragon vein in his hands earlier, he probably wouldn't have suspected that Luoho actually had other plans. Because on paper, there was no problem with Luoho's original plan. They were responsible for blocking the counterattack of the era's heavenly way, while Demon Venerable Luoho was responsible for opening the channel to attract the Devil era's heavenly way to descend and devour this falling era. After that, apart from obtaining the king-level dragon vein, they would also receive other benefits from the Devil era's heavenly way. This was the complete plan. However, Luoho didn't expect that there was another plan in addition to this plan, and this plan wanted them to be buried together and die together. He's really planning to get something without risking anything. Yishuan sighed. Luoho's plan was really huge, but he didn't panic. He had the supreme ancestral symbol in his hands, so he had the power to protect himself. So, he wasn't afraid. Luoho had his plan, and Yishuan also had his own plan. Luoho used him as cannon fodder to block this era's heavenly way, but he also had his own plan. Luoho intended to get something without risking anything, but Yishuan also had his own plan. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. However, the most important thing right now was to kill all the heavenly venerables of this era that were rushing over. Although these heavenly venerables didn't have a complete physical body that came from the river of time, they were the projection of their will. In addition, the heavenly way had reconstructed their physical bodies. In fact, they were stronger and more perfect. These heavenly venerables all had the combat power of the peak of the 5th realm. And the heavenly venerables in front of Heavy Water Supreme and Immortal Fairy Ling Yun were also at the peak of the 5th realm. Only the heavenly venerables in front of purple thunder saint were at the sixth realm. It seemed like they were separated into different categories, and the ones rushing towards demon venerable Luo Ho were even stronger and more terrifying. Yishuan immediately understood that the heavenly way of this era was manifested according to everyone's realm. It didn't create the eighth realm or even the ninth realm heavenly venerables to attack, because the energy needed to create a fifth realm heavenly venerables and a ninth realm heavenly venerables might be more than 100 times different. They couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. In such a situation where he was forced to his limits, he would naturally save as much as he could. The will of the era made him not want to die, and if he used up the last of his energy, then even if he managed to destroy this group of invaders, the heavenly Tao of this era would still collapse, and there would be no chance of survival. But unfortunately, the heavenly way of this era didn't have its own will after all. It couldn't really judge Yi Shiwen's strength, and this was Yi Shiwen's biggest opportunity. Huh! Yi Shiwen shouted. The previous 4 demon ceiling formations collapsed. For him, it was just the right time to break the shackles. He didn't need to care about the operation of the formation, and he went out on the spot. And this time, Yi Shiwen didn't hold back. The super powerful strength that was enough to sweep away the sixth realm erupted. A kick swept out like a lightning that tore the night sky. Looking from afar, it looked like a mountain was lifted up and smashed towards the heavenly venerables of the era's heavenly way in front of him. Bang! The heavenly venerables of the era's heavenly venerables were kicked into pieces on the spot, and their flesh disintegrated in the sky. The heavenly venerables of the era's heavenly venerables had reached the peak of the fifth realm, but in front of Yi Shiwen, they were still so fragile. They weren't on the same level at all. Although Yi Shiwen's cultivation was also at the peak of the fifth realm, his combat power was enough to sweep away the sixth realm. The heavenly venerables of the era's heavenly venerables struggled to get up and fight again, but Yi Shiwen's big foot stomped down like a mountain. The heavenly venerable's will in his flesh was trampled to death on the spot, annihilated. The speed was too fast. It was just a short moment, and everything had already determined the outcome. But Yi Shiwen wasn't satisfied. Instead of retreating, he directly attacked these heavenly venerables, taking the initiative to launch a counterattack. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen killed his way into these heavenly venerables. Facing the joint attack of many heavenly venerables, he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. He held a long saber formed by the Gongjin ancestral qi in his hand, and its power was terrifying. A heavenly venerables who were accidentally struck by the long saber formed by the Gongjin ancestral qi were completely turned into nothingness on the spot. The flesh that was originally condensed by the heavenly way collapsed in this blow, and the heavenly venerables while hidden in it was also slain by the saber. Although these heavenly venerables of the era's heavenly venerables had strength no less than ordinary heavenly venerables, in fact, they were easier to kill than ordinary heavenly venerables because their heavenly venerables will was too fragile. Only a small part of the will was extracted from the river of time, and it couldn't be regarded as the complete version of the heavenly venerable's will. The long saber in his hand was also invincible, and it was much more terrifying than ordinary heavenly venerables. These heavenly venerables who had fallen in the past didn't even have a decent heavenly venerable's Tao weapon in their hands. They were only condensed by their will, and their actual combat power was far inferior. When facing the long saber formed by the Gongjin ancestral qi in Yi Shiwen's hand, they were often vulnerable and simply smashed into pieces. Sometimes, even the heavenly venerables who hid behind the heavenly venerable's Tao weapon that manifested there would be killed by the saber. The saber's momentum didn't reduce, and everything was smashed into pieces. It wasn't that these heavenly venerables were too weak, but Yi Shiwen was too strong. They were only ordinary fifth realm heavenly venerables, but the combat power that Yi Shiwen possessed was completely at the sixth realm level, and it was enough to sweep them away. They weren't on the same level at all. The battle here finally attracted the attention of Ling Yin Immortal Fairy, Supreme Heavy Water, and Purple Thunder Saint. The three of them were almost shocked, especially Supreme Heavy Water and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy. Their eyes widened. Their opponents were also heavenly venerables at the peak of the fifth realm. They had exhausted all their strength just to resist. Otherwise, they would be killed, but Yi Shiwen could sweep them away. That's way too perverted. Chapter 35:26. Among the heavenly venerables evolved by the heavenly way, which one of them wasn't outstanding? They were all figures who shone in the long and glorious river of time in this era. Every one of them had their own unique way. Which one of them wasn't an outstanding figure? They were extremely powerful and terrifying, especially in the same realm. Any one of them was an invincible figure. Not to mention people like Heavy Water Supreme and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy. Even Purple Thunder Sage was the same. He was struggling under the siege of heavenly venerables of the same realm. Even if his strength was slightly stronger than any one of them, it was enough to drown everything when the number reached 2 digits. Moreover, under this era's heavenly axiom, their strength would more or less be suppressed. Although it wouldn't be as terrifying as it was during the peak of the era, when experts exchange blows, the slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. However, Yi Shiwen displayed a completely different style. With the same cultivation at the peak of the fifth realm, he almost suppressed the group of heavenly venerables evolved by the heavenly way. Such combat power almost made them raise their eyebrows, especially Purple Thunder Sage. He always thought that he was undoubtedly the strongest among this group of people. Even if Yi Shiwen displayed amazing combat power when he killed the purple-haired middle-aged man, in his opinion, the combat power was still within the range of the fifth realm. As long as Yi Shiwen hadn't entered the sixth realm, he wouldn't take it to heart. The heavenly venerable's realm was like ascending to the heavens. Only a difference of one realm would make a huge difference in combat power. Although it hadn't reached the stage of qualitative change, with his strength, it was more than enough to fight Yi Shiwen, Heavy Water Supreme, and Ling Yun Immortal Fairy. That was why he was so arrogant, because he was extremely confident in his own strength. The only thing that he was afraid of was Demon Venerable Luoho. However, he never expected that Demon Venerable Luoho would actually set up such a vicious plan to deal with them. However, no matter how shocked they were at this moment, it was useless because people still had to rely on themselves. At this time, hoping for others to save them was an extremely ridiculous thing. What kind of friendship did they have between them for others to risk their lives to save them? What was even more terrifying was that even if they persisted until this era's heavenly law collapsed, Demon Venerable Lu and the others outside would not let them off. They would definitely kill them to silence them. Otherwise, once the news spread, the reputation of the demon era would be ruined. Although fame didn't seem to be of much use to people like them, it depended on the situation. If this news spread throughout the many ancient epochs, then no one would cooperate with the demonic path epoch in the future. It was unknown how much of the demonic path epoch's hidden strength would be weakened. Moreover, he had already offended them to this extent. If he didn't exterminate them and kill them to silence them, he wouldn't believe it himself. If it were anyone else, they would have given up on themselves and fallen into despair. In any case, they would not be able to hold on any longer. They might as well not help the people from the demonic Tao epoch resist the epoch's heavenly Tao. However, they were all celestial masters. Each of them had a firm mind. They had experienced many difficulties to achieve their current achievements. How could they give up in this situation? Not giving up until the last moment was the right thing to do. Such a disposition had fallen into Demon Venerable Lohu's scheme. He had even calculated this. Demon Venerable Lohu had predicted that they would not give up on themselves. Since it was impossible for them to give up, they had to resist the counterattack of the epoch's heavenly law until they died in battle. Although they had also tempered their hearts to be like a boulder, they still felt a chill down their backs when they thought of this. Compared to their backs, which were drenched in cold sweat, Yi Shiwen was much calmer. It wasn't only because the era's heavenly law couldn't do anything to him. More importantly, He already knew about Demon Venerable Luo Ho's scheme. All of this was within his expectations. He didn't want to save the others either. Their relationship wasn't that good. In the distance, Demon Venerable Luo Ho was deep in the Great Array. Endless brilliance bloomed under his feet as he continuously summoned the demon epic's heavenly law will. The battle between the two epics' heavenly laws was already in full swing. However, this epic was on the verge of collapse. Slowly, it began to show signs of not being able to hold on. The most obvious was that the celestial masters of the various epics' heavenly laws could no longer continue to manifest. This was because the epic's heavenly law no longer had the ability to do so. Most of its energy was being held up by the demon epic. It had no way to deal with Yishiwen and the others. Even so, just a portion of the epic's heavenly law's power was enough to suffocate Purple Thunder, Saint Venerable, and the others. Haha, we're about to succeed. Even with Demon Venerable Luo's shrewdness and scheming, he couldn't hide the joy on his face when he saw that he was about to succeed. At this time, he noticed that Yi Shiwen, who was sealed by the 4 demon-sealing great arrays, had already killed all the powerful celestial masters formed by the epic's heavenly law's will. However, he didn't take it to heart. Although Yi Shiwen's combat power made him look at him in a different light, Yi Shiwen could only be a 6th realm master at most. So what? How could Yi Shiwen fight against him? Immediately, he wholeheartedly entered the state of maintaining the great array, no longer being distracted. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath. He had finally dealt with all these powerful celestial masters. Although these celestial masters were powerful, they were only in the 5th realm. Although his combat power was suppressed by the epic's heavenly law, fortunately, it wasn't reduced by much. Now, he could already feel the weakening of this epic's heavenly law. It was much weaker than at the beginning. It didn't even have the energy to create more celestial masters. Yi Shiwen sat cross-legged in the void and muttered something. Countless information flashed in his mind. In the distance, Purple Thunder Saint and the other 2 were already in a bitter battle. They weren't like Yi Shiwen, who had the ability to fight beyond their realm. Now that they were besieged by a dozen celestial masters, they began to become weaker and weaker. The celestial masters' spiritual power was boundless, magical power was vast, and they were immortal. However, that was only relative to those below the celestial master level. If they were compared to the celestial masters, then they wouldn't be so magical at all, especially Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy. Among the 3 celestial masters, her combat power was the weakest. Under the siege of multiple celestial masters, she was the first to show signs of weakness. Her flesh and blood were broken, and she was torn apart several times. However, she barely escaped. These celestial masters besieging her, although they weren't the real celestial masters, had the celestial masters will projected in them. Each of them was more terrifying than the other. If Yi Shiwen wasn't a master who could fight beyond his realm, he wouldn't be able to hold on at all. Yi Shiwen watched from afar and didn't make a move. He only saw Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy, finally couldn't hold on any longer. She was besieged by several celestial masters and beaten to death. Her entire body was torn apart, and her spirit vanished on the spot. She screamed miserably. A super powerhouse who once dominated an ancient era died, tragically just like that. Yi Shiwen just watched and had no intention of making a move. After Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy, was killed, he formed a big hand and collected all the wealth in Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy's inner world. A veteran celestial master like Ling Yun naturally had a lot of wealth. However, what Yi Shiwen coveted the most was the Demon Era's King level Dragon Vein. The one he obtained from Demon Venerable Luo Ho had been used up just now. Although he had paid a huge price, in his opinion, it was still very worth it. He could sit back and watch as these celestial masters were defeated, and he could obtain the king-level Dragon Vein in their hands. At that time, with 3 more king-level Dragon Veins in his hands, he could do a lot more things, and his strength could improve again. After these experts besieging Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy, killed Ling Yun, they immediately turned around and rushed toward Supreme Heavy Water. Supreme Heavy Water, who was already under a lot of pressure, couldn't hold on at all. After a few screams, he was completely killed, just like Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy. The situation he faced was even more bleak than Ling Yun, Immortal Fairy. And Supreme Heavy Water's wealth was also taken by Yi Shiwen. If he didn't take it, he wouldn't be able to escape from Demon Venerable Luo Ho's clutches. Demon Venerable Luo Ho had probably arranged all of this. Although he had given the king-level dragon veins first, these king-level dragon veins would eventually fall into the hands of Demon Venerable Luo Ho. He didn't have to pay any price, and he could find 4 cannon fodder to risk their lives for him. When Purple Thunder Sage saw this scene from afar, he felt like his soul was about to leave his body, and his juniors were drenched in cold sweat. Although these 20 or so Celestial Masters that were free weren't 6th Realm Celestial Masters, when a number reached this level, the gap between realms had already been wiped out. Moreover, it was already very difficult for him to face more than 10 powerful 6th Realm Celestial Masters. If more than 20 powerful 5th Realm Celestial Masters came over, he could be killed almost instantly. However, he had no way to resist at all. Suddenly, he saw Yi Shiwen's direction, and he suddenly had an idea. He quickly flew towards Yi Shiwen. He wanted to lead people to Yi Shiwen's side and replace him to fight against these celestial masters formed by the era's heavenly law. Seeing this scene, Yi Shiwen immediately understood his plan. He couldn't help but sneer, and he didn't take it to heart. Seeing Purple Thunder Sage flying over, Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. He just shouted, and then he clenched his fist and punched out fiercely. Purple Thunder Sage didn't expect Yi Shiwen to attack so suddenly. He didn't give him any face at all, and didn't even give him a chance to get close. He was blasted away immediately. Suddenly, he screamed and was killed by the celestial masters that followed closely. Chapter 35:27. Purple Thunder Saint was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's punch. He fell directly into the group of heavenly venerables formed by the era's heavenly way. He screamed and was killed by these heavenly venerables. Although he was very strong, he had to face too many enemies. Before he died, he glared at Yi Shiwen. His gaze revealed a deep-seated hatred. It was as if he was saying, "Don't be complacent. You will die soon." Yi Shiwen was quite helpless. After all, he wasn't the one who caused his death. It was Demon Venerable Luo. Why did it seem like he was the worst person? Although he had pushed Purple Thunder Saint in the end, he wouldn't have chosen to help if Purple Thunder Saint hadn't wanted to cause trouble for him. Purple Thunder Saint might have been able to live a little longer. After Purple Thunder Saint died, the wealth in his inner world also belonged to Yi Shiwen. Although these heavenly venerables formed by the era's heavenly way had the strength of heavenly venerables and the will of heavenly venerables, they were people of the past, after all. They weren't living people. Therefore, they wouldn't compete with Yi Shiwen for the wealth in the inner world. In the end, they all belonged to Yi Shiwen, especially the 3 king-level dragon veins. They were the most important ones. With 3 king-level dragon veins, Yi Shiwen could be considered to have become rich overnight. He could do many things. After the heavenly venerables formed by the era's heavenly way killed Purple Thunder Saint, they turned their attention to Yi Shiwen. They had to eliminate all the people in this seal first. To deal with external problems, they had to first settle the internal problems. This was also why Purple Thunder Saint said that Yi Shiwen would die in the end. Facing the siege of dozens of heavenly venerables, he couldn't figure out how Yi Shiwen could survive. Demon Venerable Liu, who was far away, also barely glanced at it. After that, he lost interest because he knew that Yi Shiwen was dead. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't withstand the joint attack of so many heavenly venerables. An Empyrean was a supreme being of heaven and earth, an extremely terrifying existence that could sink an entire world with a wave of his hand. However, compared to the true power of the heavenly Tao, he was simply too weak. They weren't even on the same level. There was simply no comparison. At this moment, a violent fluctuation suddenly erupted from Yi Shiwen's body. Countless runes flew out of his body. Each of these runes was splashing with colorful brilliance. They were unimaginably powerful. They soared into the sky and rushed into the sky. In an instant, they broke the four demon-sealing great formations that had been arranged by the demon lords of several devil epics. What? How is that possible? The four demon lords were astonished. They didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have such a terrifying fighting strength at such a critical moment. Even the heavenly law of this era couldn't break the four great demon sealing arrays. However, Yi Shiwen had broken them. This was simply a miracle. It was impossible for something like this to happen. They could feel that the entire formation was trembling under the impact of this force. What's that? Many people looked at the endless power of runes that erupted from Yi Shiwen's body. He was actually able to reopen the four demon sealing great formations. What kind of power is that? How is it possible? He still has some strength left. Demon Lord Luo Ho's eyes widened. He also revealed a somewhat incredulous expression. When he saw that Yi Shiwen didn't make a move to save Purple Thunder Saint Sr. and the other two, he felt that these heavenly venerables were cruel and merciless. They only cared about themselves. Even at this time, they didn't know how to cooperate with each other. They deserved to die, because he also hoped that these people would cooperate with him so that they could buy some time for him. However, he didn't expect the result to be like this. Yi Shiwen didn't rescue Purple Thunder Saint, Heavy Water Saint, and Ling Yun County Lord. However, he still had a trump card. It wasn't that he couldn't hold on anymore. Moreover, he could reopen the four demon sealing great formations. Although it was only a small corner, it was already enough. If Yi Shiwen wanted to escape, it was already enough. Oh no, he's going to escape. Luoho naturally thought that Yi Shiwen might escape. From the moment he found Yi Shiwen, he realized that he had underestimated Yi Shiwen. Originally, he thought that Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary peak 5th realm cultivator. Later on, Yi Shiwen erupted with combat power comparable to the 6th realm. Now, Yi Shiwen actually had the ability to break the four demon sealing great formations. This was something he never expected, because no one had ever been able to do it. Even though the main power of the four demon sealing great formations was used to suppress the heavenly way of the era that was about to fall, it wasn't something that an ordinary Empyrean could do. If it were him, it would be impossible for him to do it. Now, although he had eliminated everyone else, Yi Shiwen had escaped with 4 king-level dragon veins. It was simply intolerable. He never thought of giving away the king-level dragon veins. Now that Yi Shiwen was about to escape, he couldn't do anything at all, because he couldn't leave this place. Otherwise, without the guidance of the Great Formation, the heavenly way of the Devil era wouldn't be able to descend here. Although the heavenly way was strong, it needed someone to guide it, and he was that person. When the other Empyrean masters heard Demon Venerable Luoho's shout, they also reacted. Naturally, they all thought that Yi Shiwen's intention was to escape. They had planned so much, but in the end, an accident like Yi Shiwen still happened. However, just as they were feeling extremely depressed, Yi Shiwen didn't escape after opening a big hole in the 4 demon sealing great formations. On the contrary, when facing the Empyrean masters evolved from the heavenly way of the era, he didn't move at all. A terrifying shock wave swept out and directly blocked them outside. It was the supreme ancestral symbol in Yi Shiwen's body that flew out and blocked them. With 3 king-level dragon veins in hand, Yi Shiwen had enough confidence to activate the supreme ancestral symbol and directly block the dozens of Empyrean masters outside. Although it was only for a short period of time, it was enough for him. Yi Shiwen smiled and spread out his hand. Suddenly, countless golden threads flew out of his hand and transformed into a huge magic array. It had taken shape in an instant. It wasn't difficult for him at all. Just when everyone was wondering what Yi Shiwen was planning to do, a terrifying willpower descended from the hole that had been created by the 4 great devil-sealing arrays under the guidance of the Zhun method. Just like the will of the demonic way era, another horrifying will descended. This was somewhat similar to the will of the demonic way era, but it was many times stronger than the will of the demonic way era. One was like the setting sun, while the other was like the sun at noon. They couldn't be compared at all. This is the will of the martial epic's heavenly way. Demon Venerable Luoho immediately woke up. The moment the will of the martial epic's heavenly way descended, it startled him. He recognized the origin of this will almost immediately. This was because the main character of this epic was the martial epic. It wasn't the first time the demonic way era and the martial epic had fought each other. How could he not know? However, he never expected that it would be the will of the martial epic's heavenly way. He didn't know that Yi Shiwen was the heavenly venerable of the martial epic. He had never heard of the name Righteous Heavenly Venerable. Very soon, he reacted. This title of Righteous Heavenly Venerable was probably a disguise. There was no need to mention the hostile relationship between the demonic way era and the martial epic. Many experts from both sides had fallen at the hands of the other. It could be said that their hatred was as deep as the sea. Now, he finally understood why he repeatedly miscalculated. It was because he was wrong from the very beginning. He thought that his plan was flawless, but in fact, there was a mistake from the very beginning. Yi Shiwen was not some heavenly venerable of the ancient epic, but a heavenly venerable of the martial epic. The difference was too big. With Yi Shiwen's interference, it was impossible for any of his plans to succeed. This was the origin of a series of accidents. It was like hitting geese all day long, only to be pecked in the eye by the geese. When he was scheming against Yi Shiwen, he didn't expect that Yi Shiwen was also scheming against him. Judging from the current results, it was clear that Yi Shiwen was superior. This was because he had been schemed against, but he had no way to counterattack. The martial epic's will of the heavenly way had descended. This was Yi Shiwen's fundamental plan. Demon Venerable Lihu wanted the demonic epic's will of the heavenly way to devour this epic's heavenly way to complete the sacrificial ceremony and obtain great benefits. Yi Shiwen could do the same thing. However, he had been hiding his strength in this objective. This was because he knew that if he acted too early, he would become Demon Venerable Lihu's target. It was fine for the others, but this Demon Venerable Lihu was an existence that even Yi Shiwen could not see through. In terms of strength, Demon Venerable Lihu was probably much stronger than him. Therefore, Yi Shiwen could only endure until now. Fortunately, although Demon Venerable Lihu was very scheming and shrewd, he was clearly too confident in Yi Shiwen. That was why he easily fell into Yi Shiwen's trap and fell into Yi Shiwen's trap. With the descent of the martial epic's will of the heavenly way, the original scene of two heroes fighting for hegemony instantly turned into a tripartite confrontation. After the martial epic's will of the heavenly way, which was already on the verge of collapse, joined the fight of the martial epic, it seemed to be severely injured. The dozens of heavenly venerables that had originally formed also turned into pure origin energy and returned to the epic itself. In order to resist the attack of the new martial epic, it had already done its best. Compared to the confrontation between the epics, the confrontation between the heavenly venerables was nothing. The three heroes fighting for hegemony could start at any moment. Chapter 35:28. The clash of the epic's heavenly Daos was like a landslide, like a tsunami. Even the strong heavenly venerates felt like the world was about to end. Originally, the clash between the weakened epic's heavenly Daos and the demonic epic was already like a tsunami. Every time they clashed, it was like a heavy blow to the various heavenly venerates. Their minds were shaken. When the martial epic joined in, everything became even more chaotic. It was like three whales squeezed into a small pond, overturning the rivers and seas, destroying everything. The three heavenly Daos were all different. They swallowed and destroyed each other. As the saying went, people with different Daos could not work together. When the heavenly Daos of two epics clashed, they would collide and destroy each other. That was the only result. In this clash, there had to be a victor. The first to show signs of collapsing was none other than this epic's heavenly Dao, which was on the verge of destruction. This was because it was already on the verge of destruction. However, when it met the martial epic and the demonic epic, this process accelerated significantly. The world, which had already fallen into a deathly stillness, started to crumble at a visible pace. After suffering the attacks of the two, it finally could not hold on any longer. However, just at this moment, the demonic epic's heavenly Tao started to frantically attack the martial epic. Among the three epics, the martial epic was the strongest, like the blazing sun in the sky. As for the demonic epic's heavenly Tao, one was like the setting sun, while the other was like the setting sun, leaving only a bit of its afterglow. Once this epic's heavenly Tao collapsed, the demonic epic would most likely not be able to defeat the martial epic. At this moment, they could only do their best to resist. This would give the dying epic's heavenly Tao a chance to catch a breather. At this moment, Yi Shiwen and Demon Venerable Luoho's expressions gradually turned unsightly. Since the start of the heavenly Tao battle between the three of them, the temperature had been rising. However, be it the demonic Tao epic or the martial Tao epic, their true bodies were not here. If they wanted to continue descending, the most crucial thing was to keep pouring in large amounts of resources. Even her magic power had to be continuously poured in to maintain the descending passageway. It was especially so for Demon Venerate Rahu, who had been in this state for a very long time. Every time the heavenly Tao of the three of them clashed, it would affect the entire descending passageway. The massive backlash would be reflected on him. If he wasn't a heavenly Venerate, a single wave of backlash would be enough to kill an Emperor Lord. Not to mention these successive waves of backlashes. Even someone as powerful as him could feel the terrible impact. On the other side, Yi Shiwen's complexion also began to turn pale. Maintaining this descending passageway was also a huge challenge for him. The heavenly Tao was continuously descending through that passageway. If it weren't for the 3 King Grey Dragon veins that he had just obtained, he wouldn't have been able to sustain such a consumption. To maintain this great formation, he had to constantly consume a vast amount of spiritual energy. Previously, when he watched a heavenly Venerate use it, although he felt it, it wasn't as deep as when he laid down the great formation himself. He had learned this guiding great formation from the middle heavenly Venerate. Although he didn't ask the middle heavenly Venerate directly, it wasn't difficult to deduce with the existence of the mysterious space. This formation wasn't difficult to set up. Every epic had such a secret method to guide the heavenly Tao of the current epoch to descend. This wasn't a secret. The real huge consumption was the time to maintain the formation. For example, when the 7th Gold Era was destroyed, the resources consumed for a few days and nights was an astronomical figure. Only an old top powerhouse like the middle heavenly Venerate could accumulate such a large amount of wealth. Just maintaining it for a while now already made him feel strained. The King Grey Dragon vein that was captured for consumption had already been consumed by almost 1/10. Such a terrifying consumption rate wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. Fortunately, the heavenly Tao of this era wasn't as powerful as the 7th Gold Era. Relatively speaking, it was easier to devour. However, there were also benefits to doing so. In the process of the heavenly Tao's continuous descent, he could also take the opportunity to understand the heavenly Tao. He was originally already at the peak of the 5th realm. As the heavenly Tao's continuous descent, he could even begin to figure out many realms of the 6th realm. This would save him many years of hard work. The only problem was the demonic epic that Demon Venerate Luoho summoned. He also understood that Demon Venerate Luoho probably wanted to eat his flesh, drink his blood, and tear him into pieces. Because of Yishuan's appearance, all sorts of accidents kept happening to his plan. Now, there was an epic's heavenly Tao to snatch his food. Yishuan had completely messed up Demon Venerate Luoho's good plan. Naturally, he wanted Yishuan to die. This was why the demonic epic and the epic's heavenly Tao, which was about to die, worked together to fight against the martial epic. However, even so, facing the martial epic's aggressiveness, both sides retreated step by step. This was because their strength couldn't compare to the martial epic at all. Even though the demonic epic was so rampant, going against the martial epic in every way, they had to pull in other ancient epics to be able to compete with the martial epic. Otherwise, they would still face a calamity. This was the power of the current epic. Damn it! Demon Venerate Luoho finally revealed his ferocious side. He gritted his teeth and glared at Yi Shiwen. He knew that Yi Shiwen was the key to breaking out of this situation. As long as Yi Shiwen died, even if he ran away, the martial epic's heavenly Dao would instantly disappear. Without the guidance of the formation that he laid down, the martial epic's heavenly Dao would not be able to descend. However, Demon Venerate Luoho could not move. Otherwise, the first to die would be the demonic epic's heavenly Dao. If this continued, it would only be a matter of time before the martial epic defeated the two epics' heavenly Dao. At this moment, the martial epic already displayed an overwhelming advantage. Go! Give up on the 4 demon sealing formations and kill that righteous heavenly Venerate first. Demon Venerate Luoho roared. When the 4 demon Venerates, who were maintaining the 4 demon sealing formations in the 4 corners, heard Demon Venerate Luoho's words, they immediately understood what he meant and gave up on the 4 demon sealing formations. At this moment, their main task was not to deal with the martial epic's heavenly Dao that was about to be destroyed. Instead, they had to chase the martial epic, who was disrupting the situation, out. 4 incomparably powerful figures instantly flew out and directly pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Their speed was as fast as lightning, and they had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen in just a moment's effort. Just as the attack was about to reach Yi Shiwen, the supreme ancestral symbol on his body suddenly flew up and evolved into an incomparably huge phantom in the sky. This phantom was indomitable, and it seemed as if it was the sole ruler of the primal chaos, and nothing could contend against it. The moment this phantom appeared, it already shocked all the heavenly Venerates present. Symbol Ancestor! Yi Shiwen roared loudly. He had forcibly stimulated a trace of the symbol Ancestor's essence, which was contained within the supreme ancestral symbol. He had forcibly manifested himself and was able to create a miraculous scene of the symbol Ancestor's resurrection. However, just a simple activation of the rune Ancestor's Yuan spirit within the supreme ancestral talisman had depleted 1/5 of the dragon vein. Within his body, a black king gray dragon vein struggled and screamed miserably. Its spiritual energy seemed to have evaporated in an instant. 1/5 of its spiritual energy was gone. The symbol Ancestor's aura was unparalleled. It actually shocked these demon Venerates that were charging over. However, these demon Venerates were indeed the super powerhouses of the demonic epic. They recovered their wits almost instantly and charged towards the huge phantom of the symbol Ancestor. This was because Yi Shiwen was currently within the phantom of the symbol Ancestor. If they could not destroy the phantom of the symbol Ancestor, they would not be able to harm Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth. Just to maintain the phantom of the symbol Ancestor, he had to expend a large amount of spiritual energy. The king gray dragon vein from the demonic epic that he had used as a consumable was constantly burning. Apart from maintaining the phantom of the symbol Ancestor, the most important thing was to maintain the descending passageway. As the saying went, there were pros and cons to everything. Although these demon Venerates had given up on using the 4 demon sealing formations to seal this epic's heavenly law to attack him, he had fallen into a precarious situation. Similarly, without the 4 demon sealing formations sealing it, the martial epic's heavenly Dao's will of the heavenly Dao was much stronger. This was because the 4 demon sealing formations not only sealed this epic's heavenly law, but they also blocked the descent of the martial epic's heavenly law. Now that the seal was gone, the power of this epic's heavenly law, which was about to perish, suddenly increased significantly. Without being sealed, the power that Yi Shiwen could summon also increased significantly. However, what was even more horrifying was that the power of the martial epic had also increased significantly. Without any restrictions or interference, it did not have to descend through the hole that Yishiwen created with the supreme ancestral talisman. It could descend from all directions and crush everything. At this moment, the power of the current epic's heavenly law was vividly displayed. Although that heavenly Tao epic, which was on the verge of extinction, had become much stronger, it was still far from comparable to the martial epic. In a few breaths of time, the heavenly Tao epic had crumbled. The martial epic had swallowed up the entire epic. After the martial epic swallowed up the seventh metal epic, the martial epic became even stronger. Yishiwen could even see the seventh metal laws in the will of the martial epic descending, much more active than ordinary laws. Chapter 35:29. In this confrontation between the eras, the law of aged metal was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into the epic of Heaven's Way that was about to perish. This time, the epic of Heaven's Way that was about to perish was destroyed so quickly. The effect of the law of aged metal was not to be underestimated. Obviously, after devouring the aged metal era, the martial epic had become even stronger. After devouring the epic of Heaven's Way that was about to perish, Yishiwen could clearly feel that the martial epic had become stronger again. Although the extent of this increase was not as exaggerated as when it devoured the aged metal era, for a powerful era like the martial epic, this degree of increase was terrifying enough. The most obvious point was that it had become more aggressive. After devouring the epic of Heaven's Way that was about to perish, it directly attacked the demonic epic's will of heaven. Although the demonic epic was not the epic of Heaven's Way that was about to perish, it could not be compared to its peak. Moreover, this was not the demonic epic's home ground. They were all away. Therefore, the difference in strength between them was very obvious. The demonic epic was not a match for the martial epic, let alone the martial epic, which had become even stronger. The martial epic's will of Heaven's Way wanted to devour the demonic epic's will of heaven in one fell swoop. However, devouring a portion of the will of Heaven's Way that was about to descend would make the martial epic even stronger. However, Demon Venerable Luoho could only watch this scene. He could not do anything. He had to maintain the descending passage and prevent it from collapsing. On the other side, the Demon Venerables could not do anything to Yishiwen, who was protected by the symbol ancestor shadow. They had no way to break through. The whole situation was in a deadlock. It should be said that the people of the demonic epic were in a deadlock, that they could not do anything to Yishiwen. Meanwhile, Yishiwen was gradually expanding his advantage. The demonic epic's will of Heaven's Way was continuously defeated by the martial epic's will of Heaven's Way. It was just like when the demonic epic's will of Heaven's Way attacked the will of Heaven's Way that was about to perish. It was not an opponent of the same level. In the current age, no epic's heavenly Tao could compare to the martial epic. This was the martial epic's heavenly Tao. No one could compare to it. Although it was called a stalemate, it was actually just a short time. As the martial epic digested its previous gains, it grew increasingly stronger, and the speed at which it repelled the demonic epics grew increasingly faster. The clash between the two epics' heavenly Taos was like the tide of the sea. One waxed while the other waxed. The martial epic grew increasingly stronger, continuously swallowing up the demonic epic's heavenly Tao's will of the heavenly Tao. In the process, the martial epic grew increasingly stronger, its attacks increasingly horrifying. When Demon Venerable Luoho saw this, he naturally understood that there was no way to turn the situation around. If this continued, the will of the heavenly way of the descending demonic epic would be completely devoured. At that time, they would truly suffer a double loss and suffer heavy losses. Thinking of this, Demon Venerable Luoho could not help but clench his teeth. He directly closed the channel through which the demonic epic's heavenly Tao descended, making the demonic epic's heavenly Tao withdraw. He did not want the martial epic to continue fighting like this. Because if this continued, demon Venerable Luoho would not be able to hold on before Yi Shiwen could. He had paid too much and suffered too many losses. However, he did not gain anything at all. It could be said that he had suffered heavy losses. However, although demon Venerable Luoho decisively withdrew the demonic epic's heavenly Tao's heavenly Tao, a portion of the demonic epic's heavenly Tao's heavenly Tao was devoured by the martial epic and could not escape. This time, even the demonic epic would suffer heavy losses. Although it was not completely devoured by the martial epic like the previous epic's heavenly Tao, it was still very miserable. Damn righteous heavenly venerable, you will die today. Now that the demonic epic's heavenly Tao's heavenly Tao was truly gone, demon Venerable Luoho could finally free his hands to deal with Yi Shiwen. He was truly enraged. The backup plans that he had laid were all broken by Yi Shiwen one after another. What was even more tragic was that his ultimate goal of devouring the demonic epic's heavenly Tao, which was about to perish, was instead devoured by the martial epic, making the martial epic even more horrifying. He had suffered a double loss. If word of this spread out, he would become a laughingstock. He had paid so much that it was impossible to calculate. From the time he accidentally discovered the heavenly Tao of the epic that was about to perish, to the time he started preparing, to the time he found Yi Shiwen and the others to prepare for the descent of the demonic epic's heavenly Venerable Luoho, he did not know how long he had prepared and how much energy he had spent. Now, everything was like a reflection in the mirror. If he did not kill Yi Shiwen today, he felt that a heart demon would form in him. Seeing that demon Venerable Luoho had given up on summoning the demonic epic's heavenly Tao's heavenly Tao, Yi Shiwen heaved a sigh of relief. That was because he knew that it was finally over. This time, from the time he discovered demon Venerable Luoho's scheme to participating in it, he finally took advantage of the situation and achieved his goal. He did not make the demonic epic stronger. On the contrary, he made the martial epic stronger. Although he had paid a huge price, such as a king gray dragon vein being used up in the process of summoning the martial epic's heavenly Tao's heavenly will and maintaining the symbol ancestor's image, he had also gained a lot of benefits from it. Of course, the real benefits could only be obtained when he returned to the martial epic. The most important thing now was to escape. Demon Venerable Luoho was thoroughly enraged. In fact, Yi Shiwen could feel his towering anger even though he was thousands of miles away from him. If it was him, he would probably be angered to death. Most importantly, demon Venerable Luoho was stronger than him. Now, there was only one way, and that was to run. Yi Shiwen made up his mind almost immediately. He immediately kept the symbol ancestor's image and fled in the direction of the martial epic. Almost instantly, the demon wings on his back spread open, and a huge formation appeared under his feet. His figure instantly fled tens of thousands of miles away. Yi Shiwen was also moving at full speed. However, just as he was about to escape, the demon sovereigns who had already surrounded him made their move at the same time. One by one, they pounced on him. They were also super experts with rich combat experience. Naturally, they would not miss such an opportunity. However, the only thing they miscalculated was Yi Shiwen's strength. Facing a sixth realm demon venerable, Yi Shiwen was the strongest among the demon venerables, second only to demon Venerable Luoho. The strength of a sixth realm demon venerable was even comparable to purple Thunder Saint Venerable. Naturally, demon Venerable Luoho was fully prepared. He would not let purple Thunder Saint Venerable, Yi Shiwen, and the others have the chance to counterattack. However, in the end, he miscalculated Yi Shiwen's strength, which led to the current situation. The sixth realm demon Venerable revealed a ferocious expression. If it were not for Yi Shiwen, how would they have failed at the last moment? Just like how Yi Shiwen assisted the middle heavenly master in destroying the seventh gold epic, they had contributed greatly in the process of destroying the heavenly way of the epic that was about to be destroyed. When the time came, they would also obtain great benefits. However, because of Yi Shiwen, all of their efforts were ruined. Hatred had already seeped into their hearts. "Do you think you can stop me?" Yi Shiwen roared, and a ribbon seal flew out of his body. It flew into the sky and grew bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, it turned into the size of a mountain. Then it fiercely slammed down towards the sixth realm Devil Lord. This was the martial venerable seal. After hiding for so long, Yi Shiwen finally did not have to hide his strength anymore. He could truly use his incomparably powerful strength. Bang! The sixth realm demon venerable was caught off guard because he thought he was on the offensive side. He did not expect Yi Shiwen to attack without any hesitation. How terrifying was the martial venerable seal, especially when it was integrated with the Chi of merit. Although it was not a complete sacred tool of merit, it was still the top among the heavenly master Tao tools. The sixth realm demon venerable screamed on the spot. He was smashed into pieces by the martial venerable seal, and his bones flew everywhere. He originally wanted to take down Yi Shiwen, but he did not expect Yi Shiwen to be so ferocious. He was smashed into pieces in an instant. However, this was just the beginning. Yi Shiwen's hand was already holding a long saber formed by the gung metal ancestral chi. He suddenly slashed down. It was just a simple move, but it contained an incomparably terrifying power. The saber slashed the exposed spirit of the sixth realm demon venerable into nothingness. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. In just an instant, a sixth realm demon venerable was smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen, and all his wealth was seized by Yi Shiwen. This brutal scene instantly frightened the other three demon lords who were preparing to besiege Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen had killed this demon lord of the sixth realm with a sneak attack, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to kill him so easily. However, Yi Shiwen's strength was beyond doubt. He had already surpassed the fifth realm and entered the sixth realm. This was something that they could not deal with at all. In fact, they only had the cultivation of the fifth realm. How could they compete with Yi Shiwen? During this short period of hesitation, Yi Shiwen had already rushed out of the encirclement and directly whizzed away. If these demon venerables besieged him, they could obviously delay Yi Shiwen's footsteps. However, they would also die. Between death and survival, they all chose survival. This group of trash. Demon Venerable Luo, who was fuming with anger. Chapter 35:30. Seeing Yi Shiwen swagger away, Demon Venerable Luo Ho felt that these fellow demon venerables were a bunch of trash and scoundrels. They looked vicious and merciless on ordinary days. However, they would cower when it came time to go all out. However, deep down in his heart, he could more or less understand these companions, because he was also shocked by Yi Shiwen's astonishing combat power. The highest estimation he had of Yi Shiwen was only comparable to the combat power of a sixth realm, which was also in line with the combat power that Yi Shiwen had displayed earlier. However, the strength that Yi Shiwen displayed now had once again refreshed his understanding and upper limit. The combat power that was comparable to a sixth realm and the combat power that could instantly kill a sixth realm were not the same thing at all. The gap between the two could not be calculated with logic. From the beginning, Yi Shiwen had constantly refreshed his understanding and upper limit. Until now, it was precisely because he kept catching them off guard that he was able to frighten those demon venerables. Otherwise, how could this be possible under normal circumstances? However, Yi Shiwen's endless trump card still gave him a headache. He had seen people with endless trump cards, but he had never seen someone who could increase their combat power by a portion every time they use a trump card. However, it was also precisely because of this that he had formed the idea of killing Yi Shiwen. This person was so dangerous, and he was even a heavenly venerable genius of the martial epic. All the more he couldn't let him go, and he had to kill him. This was because after those ancient epics experienced the great destruction, it was very difficult for these heavenly venerables to grow as quickly as the heavenly venerables of the current epic. Therefore, when one was discovered, one had to be killed. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after him. At this moment, Demon Venerable Luo Ho roared. The other demon venerables seemed to be very afraid of Demon Venerable Luo Ho, and they hurriedly followed, not even daring to make sound. At the same time, they also understood that it was because of their previous hesitation that Yi Shiwen had escaped so easily. Therefore, they didn't dare to say anything and hurriedly chased after him. In a vast and boundless chaos, a figure streaked through the night sky like a meteor traversing through the chaos. His speed was so fast that it seemed as if he was tearing through space and teleporting. His figure flickered, and every time he appeared, he would be at least several tens of millions of kilometers away from his original location. However, such a distance did not seem outstanding in the vast and boundless chaos. Not long after the first figure flashed by, another figure flashed by and directly chased after the first figure. As time passed, the figure actually caught up with the first one. Righteous heavenly venerate, you are dead for sure. There is no way you can escape. Even if you run into the martial epic, you will still die. A deafening roar reverberated throughout the chaos space, spreading out like a raging tide. The entire chaos space was filled with monstrous wild wolves. As this figure flew past, it was only after a long while that three figures finally chased after him. Compared to the speed of the two figures in front, their speed was undoubtedly much slower. They could only follow from afar. In fact, they couldn't even see the position of the two figures in front anymore. They could only chase after the marks left by the person in front. Yi Shiwen fled frantically, not daring to stop at all. He had already been flying for a month, not daring to stop for even a moment. Behind him, Demon Venerable Luo Ho was getting closer and closer. In terms of realm and skill, Luo Ho was much more terrifying than Yi Shiwen, whose combat power was close to the 7th realm. Even though Yi Shiwen had exhausted all his methods, he still couldn't shake him off. On the contrary, he was gradually catching up. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen had started too early and had left Demon Venerable Luo Ho far behind from the very beginning. Otherwise, he would have been caught up long ago. However, during this chase, Yi Shiwen could tell that Luo Ho's skill was far inferior to that of the Moon City Lord, let alone that of the Middle Heavenly Venerable. If it were the Moon City Lord, he would have already caught up to Yi Shiwen. Back then, the Moon City Lord had easily caught up to Yi Shiwen. Of course, the current Yi Shiwen was several times stronger than back then. However, this couldn't hide the fact that Demon Venerable Luo Ho was far inferior to the Moon City Lord. Moreover, with the supreme ancestral symbol in hand, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. If he was forced into a corner, Yi Shiwen was confident that he could kill Demon Venerable Luo Ho. However, there was no need to do so, as the price was too high. Paying such a price to repel the Moon City Lord was worth it. However, dealing with Demon Venerable Luo Ho was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. Demon Venerable Luo Ho was getting closer and closer, but the distance between them was still very large. However, at this speed, he would probably be intercepted by Demon Venerable Luo Ho at the border of the martial epic. This was the greatest source of Demon Venerable Luo Ho's confidence. In any epic, his core region would put the greatest pressure on others. However, when he reached the border region, it was just better than nothing. Demon Venerable Luo Ho was confident that as long as he caught up to Yi Shiwen, he would definitely die. As for the other Demon Venerables, although they were also in the 5th realm like Yi Shiwen, the difference in their cultivation was too great. Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Yi Shiwen had left them in the dust. After flying for a few more days, Yi Shiwen could already feel the pressure of the martial epic's heavenly way. For people of this epoch like him, this pressure didn't affect them much. However, for people of other epochs, this pressure was enough to suppress their strength. It was like a huge barrier. Therefore, in order to destroy an era, the most important first step was to restrain the era's heavenly way. Otherwise, just the pressure brought by the era's heavenly way would be enough to wipe out all the invaders. Demon Venerable Luo Ho, who was behind Yi Shiwen, finally caught up to him. He took a step forward, rushed in front of Yi Shiwen, and blocked his way. In this regard, Yi Shiwen could only smile bitterly. Although he had tried his best, he was only at the 5th realm. Luoho was at least at the 7th realm. The difference between them was really too big. In fact, Demon Venerable Luoho's heart was already in turmoil when he realized that Yishuan hadn't been caught up until now. Flying wasn't a big deal for a heavenly venerable. However, flying at full strength consumed a lot of spiritual power. Yishuan was able to persist until now without showing any signs of exhaustion. Perhaps he wasn't any worse than a 6th realm expert. Let's see where you can escape to now. Demon Venerable Luoho said coldly. Even if you escape to the ends of the earth, you will still die. Escape to the ends of the earth. Ha ha ha. Yishuan laughed loudly. Demon Venerable Luoho, I think you probably haven't seen clearly whose territory this is. So what if it's a martial epic? Even if my cultivation is somewhat suppressed, it's still more than enough to deal with you. Demon Venerable Luoho smiled coldly. He did not take Yishuan's words to heart. In his opinion, Yishuan was just being stubborn. Yishuan burst into laughter. You will pay for your arrogance today. Before he finished speaking, Yishuan had already ignited all the aura in his body. The terrifying aura soared into the sky. It's too late for you to use your full strength now. Demon Venerable Luoho said coldly. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw countless rays of light falling from the sky. These rays of light condensed into a beam of light, and Yishuan was integrated into it. In the beam of light, Yishuan's aura also started to become terrifying. What's going on? Why is there so much merit chi? With Demon Venerable Luoho's eyesight, he could naturally see that the essence of this beam of light was merit chi. It was just that it was too dazzling, so it formed into a beam of light. However, he immediately figured out the reason. It was because Yishuan had helped the martial epic to devour the heavenly way that was about to perish. He had even devoured a part of the demonic epic's heavenly way. Now, this was his reward. Previously, he wanted to destroy the heavenly way that was about to perish. To a large extent, it was because he wanted to obtain the merit chi from the demonic epic. At this moment, he naturally understood what had happened. He was also very clear about the use of merit chi. Moreover, there was so much and such dense merit chi descending. His expression finally changed. Only now did he finally understand what Yishuan was trying to do. It turned out that this was Yishuan's real purpose. All the previous escapes were nothing. This was the killing move that Yishuan had prepared. However, he had been too confident before and hadn't thought about these things. But it doesn't matter. Do you think that you're my opponent with the help of merit chi? The gap in strength and realm is the same no matter when. It is impossible for you to overcome it. Before Demon Venerable Luoho finished speaking, he had already rushed in front of Yishuan. No matter what Yishuan's plan was, as long as Demon Venerable Luoho could kill him, all his plans were not worth mentioning. Although he was confident, he was not willing to let Yishuan grow like this. Otherwise, no one knew what kind of accident would happen. Yes, it was only now that he truly regarded Yishuan as a real opponent who could threaten his life. As for before, Yishuan was no different from Purple Thunder, Saint Venerable, and the others in his eyes. They were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Now, Yishuan was finally qualified to fight with him. However, it was unknown when a treasured saber had appeared in Demon Venerable Luoho's hand. It cut through the ancient tranquility. Just this saber seemed to display the true meaning of the creation of heaven and earth. It had the ability to destroy heaven and earth. Buzz! This saber tore through heaven and earth and slashed towards Yishuan, who was surrounded by merit chi. Chapter 35-31. The saber slashed through the chi of merit and blasted into the figure inside the cloud of chi of merit. This saber was beyond everyone's understanding. Even among the celestial masters, this saber was extremely terrifying. Even if a celestial master was here, he would also feel extremely shocked when he saw this scene. It was too sharp and overbearing. Clang! Just when this saber light slashed the figure within the chi of merit, a loud metallic sound was heard. Then, a big hand stretched out of the chi of merit and grabbed the saber light with his bare hands. Then he crushed it inch by inch. Soon, Yi Shiwen's figure was revealed within the chi of merit. His face still had a look of disbelief, because this saber move of Demon Venerable Luoho was too amazing. Speaking of which, this was the first time he saw Demon Venerable Luoho's real move. He had never seen it before, and this saber move had indeed amazed him. It could be said that the cultivation of this saber move had even surpassed Yi Shiwen. It should be known that among the 3,000 martial arts of Yi Shiwen, his saber cultivation was extremely tyrannical. It could even be said that the weapon that Yi Shiwen came into contact with at the beginning was a long saber. Therefore, there was no doubt that his saber cultivation was definitely at the forefront of the 3,000 martial arts. However, he also had to admit that he was inferior to Demon Venerable Luoho in terms of saber cultivation alone. This kind of surpassing was almost like a qualitative leap. It was not because Demon Venerable Luoho's realm was higher than his. Instead, he had indeed surpassed the Celestial Masters. Demon Venerable Luoho's saber cultivation was almost among the most powerful group of people. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen did not rely on his saber cultivation to move unhindered. His body was emitting the radiance of Gongjin Qi, which protected his entire body, especially his hands. The Gongjin ancestral Qi had turned into a pair of gloves. Therefore, he could take this terrifying saber move with his bare hands. Even under the situation where his realm was inferior, Yi Shiwen was still able to erupt with enough terrifying power. Above his head, the Qi of merit was still constantly falling and pouring into his body. His entire body was undergoing a transformation. Once the transformation was successful, his strength would be more than just a little bit stronger. As long as he could endure it, everything would change. Demon Venerable Luoho obviously knew this. Therefore, he showed no mercy and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen with a saber move. Demon Venerable Luoho saw that his blade couldn't chop Yi Shiwen to death. In fact, Yi Shiwen wasn't even injured in the slightest. So, he immediately understood that Yi Shiwen's physical cultivation was much more terrifying than he had imagined. Demon Venerable Luoho could see that Yi Shiwen was constantly absorbing the qi. He could see that Yi Shiwen was becoming stronger. Yi Venerable Luoho was becoming stronger. He formed a seal with his hand, and the seal turned into a saber that chopped down again. The power of the entire demonic epic seemed to have been borrowed from the distant space-time. It linked up with the ancient times and pierced through the world, bringing with it an unimaginable power as it chopped down. Yi Shiwen did not want to be outdone. He let out a long roar, and the martial saint's seal flew into the sky. It merged with all the light of the Great Way, and finally turned into a punch. It was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. One punch to suppress the world. The martial saint seal was not only unparalleled in power, but it could also evolve all of Yi Shiwen's martial arts. Moreover, the revered martial seal itself was the collection of all his martial arts. Boom! The aura of the blade and the aura of the fist collided directly in the air. In addition to the terrible power that could make a world collapse, these forces swept out and directly turned into flowers of the Great Path. The dazzling collision and violent burning. The sound of the Great Path was like the chanting of the sutras of the gods, freezing this scene into eternity. A terrible power that surpassed that of ordinary heavenly venerables broke out. Such a collision seemed to freeze time. However, in fact, it only lasted for a moment before it completely erupted. Time fragments, space fragments, law fragments, and terrifying fragments everywhere exploded and flew everywhere. Both sides had great power, and it was difficult to find an opponent. And just after this moment, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Yi Shiwen had fallen into a disadvantageous position. This blade attack had smashed his martial arts in 10 into pieces, and then his whole body had been continuously retreating. In the battle with Demon Venerable Lu, Yi Shiwen was finally defeated and fell into a disadvantage. After all, The difference between his martial arts and Demon Venerable Lahu's was not as simple as a realm. Demon Venerable Lahu only shook slightly and then recovered. In the collision, he steadily gained the upper hand. However, there was still shock in his eyes. This was because he saw the combat power of the peak of the sixth realm in Yishuan's punch. In fact, Yishuan was only a fifth realm heavenly venerable. To be able to erupt such combat power was really shocking. In the face of such terrifying combat power, his pride seemed to be nothing. However, this increased his killing intent. Such a person must not be left alive. Just now, he was already a great threat. If it was in the future, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. These killing intent and thoughts only flashed in his mind for a moment, but he still did not let go of such a rare opportunity. After stabilizing his figure slightly, he immediately rushed forward. On the opposite side, Yishuan did not have the slightest dispiritedness after the collision failed. Instead, he let out a long roar again, clenched his fist, and directly used his own fist to resist. The failure just now could not shake his will at all, nor could it make him feel dispirited. On the contrary, the collision just now gave him a feeling of contentment. The collision of the fists was like the collision of two worlds. The things that he comprehended in that instant were more than what he could have comprehended in a year. There was great terror in the midst of life and death, but only in the midst of life and death could one truly comprehend things that could not be comprehended in ordinary times. Again, Yishuan roared, waved his fist, and attacked again. As for Demon Venerable Luhu's saber light, it fell and cut the entire chaos apart. It was extremely terrifying. Bang, bang, bang. The battle between the two sides was getting more and more intense. Every second, they would exchange blows countless times. It was so fast that even they cannot keep track of it. In particular, Demon Venerable Lahu used some special magic that belonged to the demon era. It was an eye-opener for Yishuan. There were many secret techniques that could not be seen in the martial epic's demons. After all, they were no longer pure. In this epic, the one that truly ruled over everything was the martial Tao. All the other great Tao had to make way for the martial Tao. In this short period of time, it was unknown how many times they had collided. At this moment, the three demon venerables of the demon era, who had been left far behind by the two, had already caught up. However, when they saw the scene in front of them, they still felt that their worldview was about to be overturned. In their hearts, Demon Venerable Lahu was an invincible existence. Not many people could be on par with him. Even they, who were also demon venerables, did not dare to disobey his words. However, now that Demon Venerable Lahu had attacked with all his strength, he could not do anything to Yishuan. How terrifying was this? They could barely see the situation of the battle between the two. In the battle between the two, Demon Venerable Lahu had the upper hand. However, he could not turn this advantage into a complete victory. He could not take down Yishuan at all, although they could see Yishuan flying out from time to time. Even with Demon Venerable Lahu's ability, he could not seriously injure Yishuan. Although he was injured sometimes, he recovered very quickly. In other words, although Demon Venerable Lahu's saber was terrifying, it could not cause fatal injuries to Yishuan. Moreover, what made them feel even more horrified and inconceivable was that Demon Venerable Lahu, who originally had the upper hand, gradually began to shrink. He could not suppress Yishuan as steadily as before. Yishuan gradually began to be able to launch some counterattacks. Demon Venerable Lahu's defense network was also not as tight as before. No, it was not that Demon Venerable Lahu's strength had weakened and could not suppress Yishuan. It should be said that Yishuan's strength had become stronger. At this moment, they finally saw that Yishuan's strength was actually getting stronger every moment. There was a steady flow of chi of merit falling from the top of his head. Under the control of the will of heaven, no matter where Yishuan was sent flying, the chi of merit would always fall on him steadily, strengthening his strength. These devil lords weren't stupid, so they naturally understood where these meritorious chi had come from, and they immediately gnashed their teeth in hatred. After all, Yi Shiwen had obtained so many meritorious qi by plucking their teeth from their mouths. These should have been theirs, but now Yi Shiwen had obtained them. Naturally, they could not wait for Yi Shiwen to die without a burial place. But even so, they still did not dare to go forward. In such a battle, only death awaited them if they went forward. At this moment, Demon Venerable Luohu was getting more and more depressed. The situation where he had the upper hand had become a situation where he could go back and forth. However, he could not change this situation. At this moment, he heard a long roar from Yi Shiwen. The martial power on his body soared crazily and spread out in circles. Demon Venerable Lu, who was initially able to suppress his momentum, instantly felt that the situation was out of his control. In front of him, Yi Shiwen actually made a breakthrough and stepped into the 6th realm. Chapter 35-32. Boom! All of a sudden, Yi Shiwen's aura soared crazily. Yi Shiwen, who was originally at the peak of the 5th realm, finally crossed the threshold and entered the 6th realm. It would have been fine if he was just an ordinary 6th realm cultivator. That was nothing. But now, the terrifying aura that erupted from Yi Shiwen's body made everyone look at him in a different light. In particular, the few demon lords felt as if an ancient ferocious beast had awakened from Yi Shiwen's body. In an instant, it was earth-shattering, and even heaven and earth were trembling. An extremely terrifying power was boiling. Chaos stirred around him, forming a powerful chaotic storm. Is this really the 6th realm? Who is this righteous heavenly lord? How can he be so terrifying? This aura is almost catching up to the 7th realm. Impossible. The heavenly lord is already an extreme powerhouse who surpasses the limits of combat. He has even surpassed the limits of a heavenly lord. These demon lords felt their own insignificance in front of this terrifying power. They couldn't understand. Yi Shiwen had only entered the 6th realm from the 5th realm. How could he be so terrifying? If it were them, when they were breaking through, they might not even have 1/10 of this aura in front of them. This gap made them deeply aware of the gap between them and Yi Shiwen. If it weren't for Demon Lord Luo Ho blocking the front line, they would almost have the desire to turn around and escape. Yi Shiwen was too strong. The terrifying power that he had displayed could even be said to be impossible for a 6th realm cultivator to win against him, let alone them. They originally felt that they couldn't play much of a role. Now, they felt that they could only play second fiddle. There was no other use for them. Even the few demon lords in the distance could feel Yi Shiwen's terrifying aura, let alone Demon Lord Luo Ho, who was right in front of him. The terrifying waves set off by Yi Shiwen's breakthrough brought along endless chaotic energy. It was like a gust of wind blowing on his face. It was so painful that even his heavenly lord body felt a huge pressure. Just breaking through to the 6th realm was already so terrifying. If he broke through to the 7th realm, it would be terrible. Demon Venerable Luo Ho's expression became increasingly indifferent. A long saber appeared in his hand in an instant. Then, it slashed down towards Yi Shiwen with an extremely terrifying power. The breathtaking aspect of this saber was beyond the limits of imagination. All of a sudden, he rushed towards Yi Shiwen, who was in the middle of his breakthrough. Moreover, he went straight for his weakness. Yi Shiwen's strength had skyrocketed at the moment of his breakthrough. However, he also had a weakness. His vision was very sharp. He naturally knew that this was the only way to kill Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen's strength would grow crazily. Yi Shiwen would be a big trouble for him. However, at this moment, in front of Yi Shiwen, a wall appeared. It was the endless Gungjin Qi condensed in an instant. This blade fell down, directly cut into the wall. The entire blade was submerged in more than half, almost directly stabbed in front of Yi Shiwen, seriously injuring him, but in the end, it was still blocked. Bang! The saber radiance shattered in the air, leaving nothing behind. Do you think I'm not prepared at all? Yi Shiwen sneered slightly, feeling the terrifying power contained in his body. Using the chi of merit to break through was indeed the best way. Moreover, there was not the slightest trace of sequelae. He had just broken through, but he had already stabilized his realm. This feeling was just too good. Among the merit that fell from the sky, apart from a part of it being used to break through to the sixth realm, the rest was kept by him, and then he prepared to cultivate the body of merit. Although his current physique was strong enough, even enough to compete with the body of merit, it was ultimately not the body of merit. Once he cultivated the body of merit, then his physical body would be truly invincible in the same realm. If he had the body of merit to protect himself, then he would still be at the peak of the fifth realm. Although it was impossible for him to defeat the seventh realm demon Venerable Luo Ho, it was almost impossible for demon Venerable Luo Ho to injure him. This was the so-called innate invincibility. The magical use of the body of merit was naturally endless. But the problem was that the chi of merit was too difficult to obtain, especially to cultivate the body of merit. The chi of merit needed was simply unimaginable. In the entire martial arts era, there were countless experts in history, but the number of people who cultivated the body of merit was still very few. It could be counted on one's fingers. Although the merit of destroying this era that was about to die this time was not as great as destroying the Gungjin era's Yuan Tiandao. But fortunately, he did not need to share it with others, only himself. Otherwise, it would not be enough to accumulate enough chi of merit to achieve the body of merit. After breaking through to a whole new realm, he felt that he had never felt better. Whether it was his magic power or his realm, they were all unprecedented peaks in his life. Demon Venerable Luo Ho's face was as gloomy as water. He did not speak, but the grave expression on his face was enough to explain everything. Yi Shiwen's sudden breakthrough still gave him a great shock and a great pressure. "You are really scheming. I'm afraid all of this was planned by you." Demon Venerable Luo Ho finally spoke, but he finally realized that he seemed to have fallen into Yi Shiwen's trap. Although it seemed that he had the upper hand and the initiative from the beginning to the end, in fact, he was completely led by the nose. If he hadn't realized it in the beginning, then when Yi Shiwen stepped into the sixth realm, he had already thoroughly understood. "It's a little too late to realize it now," Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. All of this had indeed been planned. After destroying the Gungjin era that was about to die, as long as he returned to the range of the martial arts era, he would be able to receive the reward, which would be enough for him to make another breakthrough. It's not too late. No matter what tricks you play, in the face of absolute strength, everything is meaningless. Demon Venerable Luo Ho said. I agree with this statement, but it's not necessarily clear who has the absolute strength. Before Yi Shiwen's voice faded away, a long saber had already appeared in front of him. The saber light splashed out, almost causing the entire chaos to boil. This saber transcended time and space. Two great principles were added into it, and they were both transcended. Only then could it create such an unexpected attack. Yi Shiwen could even feel the saber light approaching. His forehead was pointed at, and it was very painful. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He raised his hand, and in an instant, it turned into a martial venerable seal, directly rushed into the sky, and collided with that saber light. Boom! This terrifying collision caused all the spiritual power in the world to boil, and it turned into a strange phenomenon that spread across the sky, directly rushing into the nine heavens. The martial exalted seal fiercely suppressed the saber radiance, shattering it into pieces. What a frightening attack this was. The few demon venerables only felt a chill on their backs, from the soles of their feet directly to their heads. Although they could judge from the momentum of Yi Shiwen's breakthrough, they were afraid that Yi Shiwen would be very strong. However, they would only be able to feel the extent of his strength when Yi Shiwen attacked for real. Yi Shiwen, who would originally be at a disadvantage in every collision, stood steadily at this time, like a majestic god standing in the chaos, able to stabilize everything. Everything was so ridiculous in front of him. That lord actually doesn't have the upper hand. The few demon venerables still couldn't believe it, because they were very clear what kind of existence demon venerable Luo Ho was in the same realm. Almost no one could match him, but now his attack was actually suppressed by Yishuan. If this battle were to spread, it would instantly cause a sensation for endless eras. And at this time, another saber light fell, and the attack that was suppressed by the martial venerable seal just now only lasted for a moment, but it recovered and fell again. The terrifying power of demon venerable Luo Ho was displayed incisively and vividly at this time. However, Yishuan wasn't an ordinary person. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a dreadful ray of light burst out from his eyes. It seemed as if his eyes could capture people's souls. The boiling blood in his body was like a vast ocean, setting off monstrous waves, rushing straight into the sky. The terrifying golden tide stopped the entire chaos. How terrifying was this power? At this time, Yishuan took a deep breath, clenched his fist, and punched out. Yishuan's fist brought along a terrifying golden tide and suddenly smashed on the saber light of demon venerable Luo Ho. Bang! The saber light was smashed into pieces instantly. This saber light was extremely terrifying, but could only leave a shallow mark on Yishuan's fist. One could imagine how terrifying Yishuan was now. His physical body was simply invincible. After smashing the saber light of demon venerable Luo Ho with one blow, Yishuan didn't hesitate at all. He waved his fists and directly rushed forward, taking the initiative to launch a strong attack, as if the previous situation where he was at a complete disadvantage didn't exist, and a terrifying power erupted. His fists were shining, and even his body was shining. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared, completely protecting him, and at the same time brought along an unimaginable attack that surged like a tide. And demon venerable Luo Ho kept slashing down Saberlight, slashing through all kinds of strange phenomena of Yishuan. It was unknown how many 6 paths of roulette were slashed. However, Yishuan became stronger as the battle went on, and he used all kinds of martial arts, bursting with terrifying power, and actually forced demon venerable Luo Ho to retreat continuously, completely in a defensive position. His momentum was magnificent, and he was invincible. The terrifying aftermath of the battle shook the chaos. Chapter 35-33. Yishuan's fists were like 2 heavy hammers that kept falling. The entire chaos was shaking as if the earth was shaking in the chaos. The blazing fist radiance swept across, and the entire chaos was illuminated by the radiance of the fists. It was like 2 huge suns that illuminated everything. The more Yishuan fought, the stronger he became. The more he fought, the more he felt that his chi and blood were unobstructed. Although he had already entered the 6th realm, he still couldn't say that he had complete control over the 6th realm. However, it was different now. He was constantly trying to figure out how to control the power of the 6th realm while he was fighting. Naturally, it would get better and better. In a battle of life and death, it was the best way to improve one's strength. Although he seemed to have the upper hand, he knew that demon venerable Luo Ho couldn't be underestimated. If he dared to reveal too many flaws, he might really be courting death. Of course, he wouldn't give demon venerable Luo Ho such a chance. Yishuan's fists were too strong. Although he didn't use any weapons, his chi and blood were unparalleled and unstoppable. At the same time, the martial venerable seal was rotating above his head and instantly turned into countless immortal lights. It was as if an extremely powerful figure was mobilizing the martial venerable seal. Clanging sounds rang out, tearing the chaos apart, and constantly falling towards demon venerable Luo Ho. Under the attack of these 2 completely different attacks, even a powerful figure like demon venerable Luo Ho could only keep retreating and be in a defensive position. Demon venerable Luo Ho, who was completely at a disadvantage, looked increasingly indifferent. However, he still had enough strength after all. Although Yishuan was very strong, he still knew when to advance and retreat. he wouldn't be completely disrupted by Yi Shiwen. Damn it, Demon Venerable Luoho thought to himself. He knew that if this battle continued, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. As the saying goes, a random punch could kill an experienced master. If Yi Shiwen kept fighting like this, even if there weren't any flaws initially, there would be flaws sooner or later. However, Yi Shiwen's chi and blood were vigorous and didn't show any signs of weakening. He couldn't continue like this. Roar! After realizing this, Demon Venerable Luhu did not hesitate at all. He let out a long roar, and a terrifying demonic aura erupted from his body. Scales began to grow on his handsome face, and they covered his entire body in just a moment. In the blink of an eye, he had transformed from an elegant young master into a pure demon. This was his true form. The fact that he was in such a state proved that Demon Lord Luoho had been forced into a corner. In his body, the origin of the great Tao was burning. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Ordinary methods were obviously no longer able to hurt Yi Shiwen. He could only use this method to fight to the death. Heavenly Lord of Righteousness, you should be proud that you have forced me to this extent. Demon Venerable Luoho said while gritting his fangs coldly. At this moment, he looked like a purebred demon, ferocious and terrifying. At this moment, his power was much stronger than before. This was the power that he had ignited his origin. After this battle, even if he won, he would be severely injured. God knew how long it would take for him to recover to his current state. So what if I have forced you to this extent? You will still die. Yi Shiwen looked at Demon Venerable Luoho from afar. Demon Venerable Luoho's body was covered with purple scales. Simple and unadorned patterns were engraved on the scales. These were special runes that could increase his strength. That endless purple color revealed a noble and mysterious aura. This was the true hidden strength of Demon Venerable Luoho. If it was an ordinary person, they probably wouldn't be able to deal with such a powerhouse. Suddenly, at this moment, Yi Shiwen's voice fell. A saber light fell from the sky. It surpassed the speed of light, and even the timeline was in a mess. No one could see the trajectory of this saber light. It was a powerful attack. Bang! This attack directly slashed on Yi Shiwen's body. An incomparably loud sound of metal colliding was heard. This saber light slashed on Yi Shiwen's body, and sparks splattered everywhere. If one looked closely, they would see a layer of metal light flowing on the surface of his body like flowing water. It covered his whole body, which prevented the saber from slashing into Yi Shiwen's body. It was the Golden Gung Qi. This was the origin energy of the Golden Gung era. It could attack and defend at the same time, and its power was really terrifying. Although this saber did not hurt Yi Shiwen could feel that Demon Venerable Luoho's power had increased. His speed had increased, and the power of his saber had also increased a lot. He was really tyrannical to an extremely terrifying extent. So strong. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but say in admiration. Under normal circumstances, he would not deliberately belittle his opponent, because that would make his own level seem low. Oomph. Demon Venerable Luoho sneered and said, "This is just the beginning. Take my move, Saber Prison." As he spoke, the saber in his hand slashed down. The endless chaos was no longer stable and collapsed one after another. This was because there was really a majestic power that was affecting them. This saber turned into countless saber lights in the sky. Every saber light was no different from Luoho's full-strength attack. Endless saber lights covered the sky and the earth. In an instant, all the laws were rejected and no longer existed. Only the laws of Saber Tao were left. It was as if the sky had turned into a Saber Tao hell, burying everything and burying everything. Every saber light would evolve into a hell-like scene. Countless evil spirits crawled out from it and wanted to claim the lives of the people. They were all experts that he had killed along the way. Their wrong souls had turned into malicious spirits, and he had sealed them in the saber light. Now all of them had burst out in an instant. As this saber slashed down, it displayed an extremely high level of saber Dao cultivation. Yi Shiwen could feel the terror of this saber prison. Countless saber lights were split out. For experts like them, it was not difficult at all. However, every saber light was equally terrifying. This was not something that ordinary people could do. Moreover, these saber lights had manifested the laws of saber Dao and brought about a terrifying storm. The amplification was not just 1 or 2 times. It was an extremely terrifying technique. Experts of the same realm could not even take this move. Taking it once was enough to seriously injure him. I will kill you with this move. Demon Venerable Luoho's eyes were resolute and cold. At the same time, he was extremely confident. This move was his ultimate move, and its power was needless to say. In the face of this terrifying move, Yi Shiwen was not afraid. Instead, he laughed and said, "This move is indeed powerful. However, it is impossible to defeat me." Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and the qi and blood in his body instantly surged. It was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than before. Countless spiritual energy poured into his arm. He flipped his palm, and in an instant, the world turned upside down. It was as if the power of heaven and earth had rushed into his hand and suddenly exploded. It smashed down fiercely. Universe Creation Palm. Boom! Yi Shiwen had finally used this move. This was his regular trump card. If he didn't take into account the Supreme Ancestral Symbol, which was obviously a trump card that he could use on a regular basis, then this was the ultimate move that he could use on a regular basis. Of course, every time he used it, it would consume a huge amount of magic power. Fortunately, he had just obtained the king-level dragon vein, so he did not have to worry about it at all. He could use it at will. The Universe Creation Palm slapped down, and it seemed as if the whole world had turned over. With unimaginably terrifying power, it finally fell and covered the entire chaos. The terrifying hell formed by the saber prison and the howling of countless evil spirits were completely destroyed by this palm. This move, how is this possible? How can you know such a level of martial arts? At this time, Demon Venerable Luo Ho finally understood what Yi Shiwen's true trump card was. This Universe Creation Palm had obviously surpassed the restraints of the Heavenly Venerable level. Yi Shiwen had casually turned over his palm, and it had completely destroyed the saber prison that he had unleashed with all his strength. However, this was just the beginning. This palm fell across the sky, and after destroying the saber prison, it did not lose its momentum and directly fell towards Demon Lord Luoho. Bang! Even though Luoho Demon Lord's speed was extremely fast, it was completely useless at this moment. He couldn't even react in time. He had never expected that his ultimate move would be defeated so miserably. Furthermore, the Universe Creation Palm had sealed up time and space. Everything was crushed, leaving him no room to escape at all. Puff! Demon Lord Luoho spat out a mouthful of old blood, and his whole body flew far away like a meteor. In the process of flying, it was as if a sharp blade had torn a huge hole in the chaos. His whole body seemed to have been crushed by a huge, heavy object, and the purple scales on his body collapsed one after another. There were dense cracks all over his body, and blood flowed out from between the cracks of the scales. Yi Shiwen's Universe Creation Palm had been blocked by the purple scales on his body. Otherwise, this move would have been enough to severely injure him, and he would not even be able to stand up. The 3 demon lords on the side were almost scared to death. What kind of joke was this? Who was Demon Lord Luoho? He was a famous existence in the entire demon era, and he had never suffered a big loss before. Now, he had suffered a big loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen. Even Demon Lord Luoho was not a match for Yi Shiwen, let alone them. If they originally only had the thought of escaping, then they really had the urge to break into a run now. It was too terrifying. Chapter 35-34. Yi Shiwen's Universe Creation Palm had severely injured Demon Venerable Luoho. Every scale on his body was not simple. They were much more powerful than any divine tool. Demon Venerable Luoho didn't know how many years he had spent refining them to reach this level. However, in front of Yishiwen, they were completely smashed into pieces with just one palm. This palm was equivalent to smashing Demon Venerable Luoho's tens of thousands of years of cultivation. Demon Venerable Luoho was so distressed that his heart was bleeding. This was his trump card. However, Yishiwen also had many trump cards. In fact, they were even more powerful. Whether it was the universe creation palm or the supreme ancestral symbol, ordinary people couldn't compare with them. Although this palm had consumed a lot of Yishiwen's magic power, it was worth it. This one move had smashed Demon Venerable Luoho's idea of turning the tables. Huff, huff, huff. Luoho, Demon Venerable, was breathing heavily. Around him, tens of thousands of laws were circling. Countless laws turned into divine chains and coiled around him. It was like a huge cocoon had enveloped him. Countless divine halos around him were like rain, sprinkling over the entire chaos. Demon Venerable Luoho, who was surrounded by countless light divine chains, was rapidly recovering from his injuries. He was forcibly recovering. You really surprised me. You can actually be so powerful. You can even grasp this universe creation palm. It turns out that you have obtained the inheritance of Lord of Fate creation. No wonder you are so powerful. Demon Venerable Luoho's expression became cold again. He didn't seem to be worried about his situation at all. Even if Yishiwen was so powerful, it seemed that he couldn't be moved. His eyes were filled with the determination to die. You also know Lord of Fate creation? Yishiwen was a little surprised. As for Demon Venerable Luoho saying that he had obtained the inheritance of Lord of Fate creation, he didn't agree or deny it. Although he had obtained the universe creation palm, it was not accurate to say that he had obtained the inheritance of Lord of Fate creation. The fortune creation heavenly monarch was extremely talented. What's so strange about me knowing him? Your martial epic should be flourishing for such a person to appear. However, now that even the fortune creation heavenly monarch has disappeared, it's clear that you have already lost your roots. Demon Venerable Luoho said coldly. Scales regrew on his body. Every scale consumed many years of cultivation. At this time, he couldn't care less. He burned all the cultivation in his body. Humph! Yishiwen sneered. Didn't your devil era also have a devil ancestor? But where is the evil ancestor now? Demon Exalted Rahu, a verbal battle is meaningless. It won't delay your death. Yishiwen said, so what if I let you talk for a while? You will die anyway. It's just a matter of time. That's right. The so-called war of words is meaningless. If a person like you grows up, he will definitely become a great threat to our demonic epic. Today, even if I die here, I will bury you here. Demon Venerable Rahu's expression was cold and emotionless. It was as if there was nothing in this world that could move him. You demonic cultivators actually have the heart to die for the demonic epic. Yishiwen sneered. It wasn't that Yishiwen discriminated against him. It was just that there were all kinds of cultivation methods in the world. Cultivating different cultivation methods would be affected by different emotions. Demonic cultivators cultivated the darkest laws and power in the world. Over time, they would naturally be affected. The so-called emperor and heavenly masters wouldn't be affected. They could stick to their original hearts. It meant that they wouldn't be affected by emotions. They would only act according to their original hearts. However, it would be a different matter if their original hearts had been affected long ago. The demon race, which was born from the darkest power in the world, was very cunning and cruel. It was normal for them to be selfish. Even heavenly masters were no exception. In Yishiwen's opinion, it was normal for Demon Venerable Rahu to turn around and run away. It was extremely rare for him to stay and fight with Yishiwen just to eliminate a future threat for the demonic epic. What do you know? Since ancient times, people with great ambitions can achieve great things. Sometimes, sacrifice is another kind of accomplishment. Demon Venerable Rahu said a few more words for the first time. However, Yishiwen knew that everything he said was just to buy time to recover. During this period of time, The injuries on his body had also been greatly repaired. He was gradually almost recovered. The corner of Yishuan's mouth raised slightly. How could he not understand this truth? One would never understand the weight of carrying a race, a world, and a plane on his back if he didn't experience it. Only a person with such great ambition would be able to laugh until the end. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll send you on your way. Yishuan shouted coldly and didn't say anything else. Demon Venerable Rahu thought that he had succeeded and coaxed Yishuan with words. However, he didn't know that Yishuan's strength was also growing rapidly while he was recovering. Under the effect of the chi of merit, he was making a breakthrough. However, it was far from reaching a fixed level. He could still go further. Even though Demon Venerable Rahu had recovered some of his injuries, the gap in strength between him and Yishuan didn't shrink. On the contrary, it had widened. Demon Venerable Rahu didn't know any of this. In other words, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. His eyes were filled with the will to die. Just as Yishuan's voice fell, Demon Venerable Luo Ho took the initiative to launch an attack. He immediately took the initiative. A treasured saber appeared in his hand, and he slashed down abruptly. It transformed into a world, and the saber prison reappeared. However, this saber prison was more than twice as powerful as before. It instantly became incomparably terrifying. Yishuan's pupils contracted slightly. The attack that Demon Venerable Rahu had unleashed was even more terrifying than when he was at his peak. With his current body, it was really shocking that he could unleash such a terrifying attack. Great Righteous Heavenly Venerable, 5 moves. I'll kill you within 5 moves. Demon Lord Luo Ho roared out. That slash cleaved the entire primal chaos into 2. Even the demon lords who were far away could sense the terrifying power surging out. That power was enough to cause the entire world to boil up as well. 5 moves? Are you confident that you can kill me within 5 moves? Or can you only hold on for 5 moves? Yishuan roared. He wasn't going to be outdone either. Demon Venerable Rahu's hand surged, but he wasn't afraid at all. This was because he could already tell that the reason why Demon Venerable Rahu's strength had increased so abnormally was because he had already burned all of his life force into these 5 moves. Therefore, he said that he could only last for 5 moves. Once the 5 moves were over, he would still die without Yishuan even having to fight. One had to admit that Demon Venerable Rahu was indeed a formidable person. At this moment, he had to fight with all his might without any hesitation. This was because he knew very well that if he didn't fight with all his might, he would definitely be killed by Yishuan. Either he would be beaten to death, or he would fight with all his might. If it were Yishuan, he would also make the same choice. However, it was easy to attack and defend at this moment. The situation was already different. Above Yishuan's head, the martial venerable seal suddenly flew out. It grew bigger and bigger, almost as if it was going to fill up the entire universe. Then, it smashed towards a saber prison that was slashing over. Boom! An incomparably loud sound was heard. The entire martial venerable seal was trembling. When it came into contact with the saber prison, a terrifying collision occurred. The martial venerable seal instantly evolved into 3,000 martial arts. They flew towards the saber lights that were slashing out from the saber prison and blew them up one by one. In terms of power, it was also first-rate and tyrannical. Such terrifying power and collision were far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Demon Venerable Rahu had erupted. He was fighting with all his might, and his strength had multiplied. Yishuan wasn't inferior either. At the crucial moment, he also stimulated his magic power to the extreme. The attack that he launched could cause the entire world to tremble violently. Even the will of chaos had to surrender to his hands. In this attack, there was no clear winner or loser. Yishuan didn't move an inch. The situation of defeat that Demon Venerable Rahu had initially expected did not appear. A surprised look flashed in his eyes. However, there was no other way. The arrow on the bowstring had to be released. He had no other choice but to fight. Only by killing or severely injuring Yishuan Would he have a way to survive? Moreover, he had already made up his mind to sacrifice everything to kill Yishuan. Second slash. The long saber in Demon Venerable Rahu's hand swung down again and slammed down fiercely. On the edge of the saber, the light of time flickered. The battle had reached a certain stage. His saber was already infinitely close to the way. In fact, it could even erupt with light that the way did not have. He didn't want to drag things out for too long. He also couldn't drag things out for too long. Every move was a desperate one. He was burning his life source. Only he had such a deep foundation. If it was an ordinary celestial lord, perhaps his life source would have been exhausted after he launched that slash just now. Yishuan opened his eyes. This slash was even more terrifying than before. In fact, it was much more terrifying. Demon Venerable Rahu's strength was still rising. Yishuan immediately understood that Demon Venerable Rahu's strength was rising exponentially. Each slash was more terrifying than the previous one. The real killing move would be the fifth move. Regardless of whether Demon Venerable Rahu would die or not after the fifth move, it would still be the most terrifying move. Previously, when he said that he would kill Yishuan even if he had to sacrifice himself, he was definitely not joking. The entire chaos was silent. Everyone and all living beings were immersed in the power of this slash. How terrifying was this slash? How terrifying was this power? This move had already made everyone tremble in fear. Who could be a match for it? Chapter 35:35. This slash could turn a world into ashes. Countless creatures would tremble in fear under this slash. It was extremely terrifying. In the face of this slash, Yishuan, who had thought of many things, also became unusually determined. He was not a person who would just passively take a beating. Above his head, the martial saint's seal suddenly burst out with endless light. 3,000 martial arts gathered into a torrent and completely fused with it. Then, it turned into a vast ocean and went up to meet the blade. Boom! It was like the sound of heaven and earth being destroyed. Everything was collapsing. Time, space, laws, everything was completely collapsing. No one could understand how terrifying this collision was. Puff! A demon lord couldn't dodge in time. He was directly swept by the terrifying wind wave formed by the collision between the two. Then he flew out on the spot. He was not a match for Yishuan at all. As for the other two, they hurriedly hid far away. Their eyes were filled with shock. This was simply too horrifying. Just the aftershock alone was enough to severely injure a 5th-level demon lord. If he were to take a direct hit, it would be disastrous. The two of them quickly retreated far enough. This was already beyond the limits of their eyesight. They could only observe with their divine thoughts. And just when this collision ended with a terrifying shock wave, Yishuan, who had been passively taking a beating, suddenly let out a long roar, then stretched out a big hand, flipped it in the air, and fiercely slammed it down with a terrifying force. Universe Creation Palm. That palm strike caused everything to be annihilated and collapsed. Even the chaos was reduced to nothingness. Time, space, and laws were all reduced to nothingness. It was extremely terrifying. To think that it would actually strike back at the Rahu Demon Lord. How can this be? Demon Lord Luo Ho's eyes were full of disbelief. His second slash had already erupted to the extreme, but it still couldn't seriously injure Yishuan. It was only blocked by Yishuan. However, he wasn't willing to give up. The third slash. If he could erupt a third slash, he would definitely be able to injure Yishuan. If he could take advantage of this opening to launch a 4th and 5th slash, Yishuan would definitely be dead. However, Yishuan didn't give him this opportunity at all. While being attacked by him, Yishuan actually seized the opportunity to counterattack. Damn it, watch my blade. Demon Lord Rahu roared and attacked again. However, this slash was only at the level of the second slash. It did not increase any further because he did not accumulate power. Every slash of his needed to accumulate power. The accumulated power of each slash would be used as the starting point for the next slash. Every slash was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. However, it was obvious that Yishuan had already seen through it. Therefore, he took the initiative to attack first, not giving him the opportunity to accumulate power. Bang! This blade light contained the power of time and space. It completely erupted. However, it was nothing in front of Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm. Time and space were all destroyed under this palm. It was completely reduced to nothingness, unable to form saber moves at all. Kara. With a shattering sound, this saber radiance was like glass shattering, covered with dense cracks, and then exploded in an instant. When this blade light exploded, the momentum of Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm did not decrease. It continued to fall, still carrying unimaginable power. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Do you think I can't see through your moves? 5 moves. Let's see if you can persist until then. If you can't continue your momentum, you're trash. Roar. Demon Lord Rahu was really forced to the end of the road. He had carefully calculated each of these 5 moves to kill Yi Shiwen. However, he didn't expect Yi Shiwen to counterattack and seize the initiative. His plan was completely messed up. At this time, he raised his saber again, not to kill Yi Shiwen, but to protect himself. However, it was of no use at all. Yi Shiwen's palm momentum was too horrifying. All of his defenses were so ridiculous in front of this palm. Take another slash from me. Demon Lord Rahu roared, and the demonic saber in his hand once again erupted with earth-shattering light. All kinds of strange phenomena leaped out, and many scenes of demon path were also displayed in this slash. All kinds of murderous aura soared into the sky. It directly slashed on Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm. Boom! There was a loud noise, and Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm was finally slashed into powder under this slash. As the saying goes, an arrow at the end of its flight can't pierce through silk. At this point, this was already the limit of the universe creation palm, and it had surpassed Yi Shiwen's own combat power. At this time, Demon Lord Rahu's body was splattered with blood. His scales were already densely covered, and his muscles were already covered with various cracks. The first slash felt like he had used all his strength, but the second slash made his face pale. Even though his black scales were covering it, it could still be seen. The third slash had already caused his body to ooze blood, and by the fourth slash, his body was already densely covered with various wounds. If another slash came, he would die no matter what, and his body and spirit would directly explode. This was the terrifying part of these 5 slashes. Although he had raised his strength to the limit, at the same time, these 5 slashes had also overdrawn all of his life force. Each slash would squander an unknown number of years of life force, and it was a secret technique that was extremely cruel to oneself. Puff! Demon Venerable Luo, who spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at Yi Shiwen. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to calculate Yi Shiwen accurately from the beginning to the end. He had always miscalculated Yi Shiwen, and now he would have to pay the price with his life. How can this be? I can't accept this. Demon Venerable Luo, Ho looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. A hint of madness flashed in his eyes. Then he suddenly flew out and pounced towards Yi Shiwen. At the same time, layers of terrifying power were brewing in his body. Then it instantly erupted. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Demon Lord Rahu self-detonated. He wanted to use self-detonation to severely injure Yi Shiwen, or even kill him. This was also the only way he could think of to injure Yi Shiwen. Because the previous blade momentum of the 5th slash had been blocked, there was no way to erupt with the terrifying power that he had originally envisioned. He could only choose to self-detonate in the end to eliminate Yi Shiwen. How terrifying was this self-detonation of a 7th realm heavenly master? Endless primal chaos was blown into powder, and a huge vortex was formed in the surroundings. Endless primal chaos crazily poured in from the point of explosion and formed an incomparably huge vortex. And in the center of the vortex, Yi Shiwen's figure appeared. Above his head, the martial venerable seal was rotating, and layers of light curtain boundaries descended, blocking the terrifying self-detonation just now. At that moment, even a martial venerable seal almost couldn't withstand it. The shock wave of the explosion actually rushed to the last layer of the boundaries, and it was almost injured by him. But even so, Yishiwen still felt some lingering fear in his heart. Although Yishiwen was confident that he could survive even if he was directly hit by the impact, after all, Demon Lord Rahu was already forced his limit at that time. It could be said that there was not much power left. Even if he self-detonated, the power would not be comparable to when he was at his peak. But if Demon Lord Rahu hadn't been forced into a desperate situation, how could he have chosen to self-detonate with his wisdom? After all, no matter what the result of self-detonation was, he would still die. This was not a method that an expert would choose. It was only possible if he was really forced to his death. But Yishiwen also felt that it was a pity that he had acted too late. If he had acted a little earlier, he could have killed Demon Lord Rahu, but he wouldn't have had to self-detonate. Because when he self-detonated, his flesh and blood would have exploded into energy, and it would be a pity that he couldn't use it to water the world tree. But the madness of Demon Lord Rahu still made his heart palpitate a little. Great righteous heavenly Lord, I'll remember you. Suddenly, an extremely cold voice came into Yishiwen's ears. Who else could it be if it wasn't Demon Lord Rahu? Yishiwen was immediately shocked. It was impossible. Demon Lord Rahu had already self-detonated and died. This was something he saw with his own eyes. Although Demon Lord Rahu was very powerful, it was impossible for him to do such a thing without Yishiwen noticing. This was simply impossible. He immediately opened his magic eyes and saw a Yuan spirit in front of him. The appearance of the Yuan spirit was none other than Demon Lord Rahu. Behind this Yuan spirit, there was a karma line that connected to the incomparably distant depths of the chaos, leading straight to the unknown future. You're actually not dead yet. Yishiwen was about to attack coldly. You're the first to be able to beat up my clone to this extent and force him to self-detonate. However, this matter won't end just like this. Great righteous heavenly Lord, I'll remember your name. One day, I'll make you die without a burial place. As soon as Demon Lord Rahu finished speaking, the Yuan spirit collapsed on the spot like a group of fireworks, dissipating into nothingness in the chaos. This Demon Lord Rahu is actually just an incarnation. Yishiwen was secretly amazed. He suddenly understood why Demon Lord Rahu dared to fight so fiercely. It was because he wasn't the main body at all. He was just an external incarnation of the main body. This kind of incarnation was similar to Yishiwen's Sword Dao incarnation. However, Yishiwen's Sword Dao incarnation was far less powerful than Demon Venerable Rahu. Even Yishiwen's main body was only slightly stronger than Demon Venerable Rahu. In that case, who on earth was his main body? Demon Lord Rahu. Yishiwen firmly remembered these 4 words in his heart. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.